Hey, it's John Carlos, and I am here with the
Eddie! Sorry, I couldn't wait. That was premature.
you know, it wasn't the first time.
You don't know.
Yeah,
You don't.
I really don't. Um, anyway, we are here to talk
Moving
about.
right along.
We're just gonna drive right past that. And just, um, Bill and Ted Face the
Ah!
Music. We talked about Excellent Adventure. We talked about Bogus Journey, and now, many years later, we have a sequel. A sequel that I, spoiler alert, quite enjoyed. Um, yeah, it's no secret. It's no secret whatsoever that they cooked up an idea what feels like maybe 10 or 7 years ago, and they spent many years trying to get it off the ground, and
Mhm,
they finally did.
mhm.
And I know that they had, I think we talked about this at the beginning of the Excellent Adventure video, they had a very limited budget. And the movie doesn't look bad, but you could, especially because now you can have a small budget and still achieve quite a bit with visual effects.
Yeah, and a green screen. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get a green screen, whatever the hell you want back there. But it's a very, you could tell that like they traveled a few locations. There's plenty of green screen stuff being used in the future. It's very economic in how it the way the movie unfolds. And I know they talked about how like there's no everything we shot is up there. There's not a lot of fat that we had to cut. We scraped by to make this happen
Right.
on a not big budget. And
Mhm.
uh, there's a lot to like. I don't even know where to start. So I'm just gonna throw out some trivia, right? Not trivia, but something that I found amusing
Okay.
because I'm probably gonna forget this later. But I appreciate the fact that Kid Cudi and David Grohl are in this movie
Oh.
because it seems to me that every Bill and Ted movie has to have two musician appearances in it.
Uh-huh.
Because Bill and Ted One has Clarence Clemens from
Mhm.
E Street Band, and then
Mhm.
Jane Wiedlin from the Go Go's. Second movie has Taj Mahal and
Mhm.
Jim, the guy from Faith No More,
You're
Jim
asking the
Martin.
wrong guy.
Jim
There you
Martin.
go.
But each movie has two
Yeah.
musicians in it. So like I like this movie because I don't count the premise is just a band playing, whereas
Mhm.
Taj Mahal has lines.
Mhm.
Joan of Arc is a character. Clarence Clemens, all these people have lines. So I love that Kid Cudi and Dave Grohl carry that tradition on.
Yeah.
Um, that's just nice. Little traditions, little things. Another little tradition. Missy marries Bill's dad. Missy marries Ted's dad. And Missy marries Ted's brother Deacon.
Played by Beck Bennett, of all
I
people.
know, so random.
So
Even
smarmy and perfect.
yeah, well, he's good at that.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, and I love that
Oh,
Deacon grew up to be a cop like his dad,
yes.
which gives the
You have
excuse
to
to
be a
have
lot of
Deacon.
things like his dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh God, he's and Deacon isn't the worst when he's a kid.
no.
But when he calls her Kissy Missy and his dad's like, that's what I used to call her, he's, don't I know it? Like,
Yeah,
ugh!
yeah, that's totally why. But
I laughed so hard. It's I don't know about you, but sometimes when you see a scene, I don't know how much your brain processes things or reads things faster, but Bill and Ted are speaking at this wedding, and we see a shot of just Missy and Deacon, and the sign behind them says like "Happy Engagement." And before they even introduce them, like I've already read the sign going,
yes,
"Deacon married Missy," and then like
yes.
4 seconds later they explain it, but like I
Mhm.
instantly started guffawing. Um, so yeah, let me get a little more focused now. Those are just some nice callbacks and nice little gags. Let me say this: it's not just
Mhm.
that it took them a long time to get to it. It's the fact that the time that this movie's coming out, even before COVID-19 happened, just the last 4 years, for whatever reason, you can infer why I'm saying 4 years, haven't been the greatest. And I think there's no surprise that even prior to that, just there's a lot of essays that have been written about why we're so nostalgic for the 80s and 90s, and how the people of a certain age now are being wistful for more of an age where things were a little easier for us as children, and why we, our lives were easier. We played with Transformers, and we liked all these things, and we're regurgitating everything now 20, 30 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Also, coincidentally, 2020 has been the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And not only having a rush of nostalgia while many of us are at home, supposed to be at home, to have a movie that isn't just a nostalgic thing that we like, a legacy sequel, but to also have a movie carry on that same level of optimism,
Mm-hmm.
both as a plot point of uniting now a new plot point, the entire fucking universe,
Yeah.
but also the character's own optimism and their daughter's own optimism. Like it is a lot of people are watching this movie. I actually went to go see it at a drive-in, but whether you're happen to be able to go see the drive-in or at home, either way, this year for 90 minutes, nothing that has come out this year has felt so soothing, that has felt like a balm the way this has. Unlike, say, I didn't see Trolls 2, but I don't think anyone who saw Trolls 2 was like, I really needed this year. And seeing Mulan was fun, but there's something about Bill and Ted and what it's offering me that it's a nice warm blanket in a year where I needed a fucking warm blanket, dude.
Yeah, even from before the movie even begins, when we just get the Orion logo at the top.
Right?
That alone, it's odd how images, that was at the beginning of so many movies,
Right?
not just Bill and Ted, but so many movies I watched when I was a kid, that already I'm just like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing me something that I don't get to see anymore unless I reach back into the past.
Right.
As I'm still kind of reaching in the past, but I'm also encountering something new. I'm not just revisiting a movie or one of two movies or watching both movies that I love and that I know what I'm getting when I watch them. I'm getting to watch the next chapter and what exactly they did. And immediately I just wrote, after that, I love the new displacement of people from their times. It's chaotic and dangerous, kind of like today. And then it really bothered me watching people kind of pop mistakenly into this. It's kind of like what my worst nightmare was, even as a kid, when I saw the beginning of Bogus Journey, watching people, because I immediately just thought, it's chaos. Maybe it's just a Virgo in me. I don't know. But I was kind of like, it's chaos. And I'm just worried. They look lost. This is not supposed to be happening. Something is wrong. And I just thought, because I realized, like, why is that bothering me so much, aside from chaos and the fact that I like order and shit? But I just wrote, it's so sad. I'm going to try not to cry in this review. But I just wrote, if people are away from where they belong for too long, their legacies can evaporate. Like, what if they are lost for so long and something happens to them so they can't return to whatever their time was, and they can't do what we all celebrate them for doing? Well, the reason why they're notable people in history, the reason why some of these people are not just recognizable by time and costume, but by like, oh, that's this person, like specifically. And something about that, the undoing of legacies, and the fact that, like, the connection with people from the past and the future, feeling lost. Something that I've felt a lot during 2020 is how little things can change just by hearing as much, just in terms of even the pandemic. I didn't know that the Spanish flu was 100 years ago their pandemic, and they made basically all the same mistakes we're making, just without iPhones and Twitter and all of that stuff. There were people who were protesting the infringement on their rights by being told you have to inconvenience yourself to protect other people. There was disinformation. There were people claiming miracle cures that were just snake oil, for profit. There was so much, and it made me feel connected in a way that was disheartening, but at the same time was also kind of heartening, because I'm like, well, even though a lot of people died, humankind got through it, and there were a lot of other things on the horizon that the humankind had to deal with, but not all of us, especially when you discuss some of the things that transpired through the 20th century, whether it's the Holocaust or the AIDS epidemic or what have you. Not everybody made it through, but humanity in and of itself continued to exist, and people continued to push for change. People continued to come together and fight to overcome, I guess, the worst of us. And that there's something about that in this movie that doesn't feel spelled out and articulated in a way that like annoys me, where I feel like I'm being preached to, but it also doesn't feel so complex and buried that I wonder if it's even there and I'm just reading it in. I feel like it's there. It's these movies, there's a simplicity to them, and there's kind of like a timeless and effortless message in every single one of them. I discussed before with Excellent Adventure and with Bogus Journey their values and their ability. I mean, I didn't even address in Bogus Journey, though, their ability to now travel interdimensionally and make people like them, make people even want to work for Bill and Ted to like them, like death, like trying to. And we have our own version of that with another character we can get to in this movie. Somebody fighting for acceptance and kind of like, a welcome into this group. And there's, so, I mean, there was a kind of timelessness and timeliness simultaneously about this movie that I was so ready for, and that I embraced wholeheartedly in the microscopic and the macroscopic. It just kind of, I mean, spoilers, folks, it worked for me. I watched a few reviews from just a handful of YouTubers after I watched the movie, and I was surprised how there were some people who used words like adequate to describe this movie, and it almost hurt my feelings. I don't usually take things that personally. Like, I may joke, or I may have an initial reaction where I'm like, what, if somebody doesn't like something I love, or doesn't even know about something, or just doesn't care about something that I like. We all have that. Yes.
Can I cite one?
Oh God, yes.
I'll never. First of all, I have since changed my mind about this. You'll be happy to know. But I will never forget when we were going on Star Tours and we're waiting to get in.
I knew you were going to talk about this.
And I mentioned that I like Brokeback, but I didn't think that Heath Ledger.
Folks. The movie.
I didn't think Heath Ledger was that great. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal really stole the show and gave me more. And Eddie like flailed, and your knees buckled, and you like crumpled, and we're like, what?
I had to hang from the railing. I had to like sway.
I've seen you have a reaction to it. For what it's worth, Heath Ledger is giving a very nuanced performance. It's not as showy, but there's so much going on there. Anyway.
Thank you.
So much going on there.
Yes.
Fuck.
Thank you, Giancarlo.
Yeah. You're welcome.
But again, like
I haven't seen any. I've got to a point where there's a handful of critics that I want to listen to.
Sure.
And I just seek those out. I don't, and everyone that I've followed generally has liked it. It depends on how people view things. And I can see how someone would call it adequate, just because there's less boldy, bogusy journey, or even it's a little bit limited by its budget, more so than the way the other movies feel. And if you're just going off of sheer spectacle, I'm not saying I agree with them, because I think the content of what you're getting, the heart of what you're getting from this movie, matters way more than like the green screen of the future, or like how abrupt the ending is or something, and just how like modest certain set pieces are. It's a modest adventure. But here's the thing: the other fucking two movies were modest too.
Thank you.
This movie is so in line. Like, first of all, each movie has a different director. Each movie has a different production design. Each movie has a slightly different vibe, has a different intention. But they all are modest. And this film totally fits in with the other two to continue that legacy. You have, I don't want to call it a perfect trilogy, but tonally, they're all Bill and Ted, but while still being something. Yeah. No, this movie's. And here's something. I feel like you have a thought, so go.
I do, and go on, go.
No. All I'll say is one of the things I really like about this franchise now, because again, you make that first movie, you're not trying to build a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I like that each movie is specifically a different thing. The first one is it's a time travel movie, and the gag is they're going through time and taking people out of history. Mm-hmm. The second movie is they die. They go to hell, they go to heaven, they fight evil robots. And the third one is we're now going to keep going forward and encountering ourselves repeatedly. Like, that's the general thrust of like, well, what's this? Well, they just keep running into themselves until they find the song. And each time they run into themselves, they're different. Okay, that's what we're going with this time. So each one is a different beast. They're not the exact same flavor of plot, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I just
respect that difference, because this movie very easily could have done the nostalgic thing and given us excellent adventure all over again, and it still sort of does with their daughters, but it's like a subplot. It gives you that and more. But what it didn't do was just do the first movie again, which I kind of would have been fine with. I respect that they didn't. But at this point, you could have given me that. I've been like, cool, all right, let's see. You know?
I remember watching the trailers and almost being a little worried because I was like, oh, I don't know. I didn't get a strong sense either way. And that just had me worried. I was just like, oh, it could go either way. I'm no longer worried, of course. But I do want to say I have two things now. Just to address what we were talking about as far as like people's response, some people's, because I also checked out Rotten Tomatoes as recent as like 2 days ago at the time of this taping, and 81% critics positive response and 75% positive response from the audience. So it's not like people are tanking it or anything like that. But I was just shocked that there was anybody that would have any complaints about the movie. That said, movies that I like this much, there often are people who, I won't say don't get it because that sounds really arrogant and I don't believe it, but who it's just not, it just didn't hit them. It just didn't, whatever resonated with me didn't resonate with them. And that's fine. But okay, so but that said, I feel like something happens with these sequel / reboots that happen with movies that we grew up with, you know, people our age and old, and well, I guess our age because we grew up with them. I remember experiencing something during the response to Halloween 2018 where I kept hearing people discuss how this Halloween sequel, when it's just not that great when you look at the other Halloween sequels. And I remember going, have you seen all the other Halloween sequels?
There's a lot of shitty Halloween sequels.
What are you talking about? Because if we're going to go comparing sequels, this is among the strongest. And we can discuss that whenever we break that down. But I mean, and also it's my opinion. I know I can respect if somebody doesn't feel that way. But at the same time, like, we got to have a discussion then about are you writing nostalgia, or do you have a legitimate argument as to like why? I'm not going to cite any particular movie, but why perhaps what I would deem a lesser sequel is better than, you know, the one that came out in 2018, the soft reboot / sequel. And I feel like there's something that happens where people idealize, even if they've just rewatched it, but there's something that they let go of, because you already mentioned it, and I agree with you that the first two movies, I mean, I love them, absolutely, but they're not like big epic, like I feel like people idealize them. I feel like they're incredibly wonderful little miracles that happened on a tight budget with incredible people at the helm. And I feel like that happened again with this. It didn't feel that tonally different to me from what preceded before. And it made me wonder, what are you remembering about the two previous movies that you're kind of unfairly holding? What kind of standard are you unfairly holding this movie to meet? Because I've got to tell you, in my opinion, that standard doesn't exist. If you really look at those first two movies, I feel like, in my opinion, my perspective, there's something uniform in the fact that every single one of them are different, but also something uniform in the sense that, like, that everything we've talked about with these two prior movies, as far as their values and as far as like what they instill in us, I feel like this movie did it, and then went one step further. Because I'll tell you this, I didn't cry in Excellent Adventure or Bogus Journey. I love them both, but neither of them made me cry. Face the Music made me cry, and we can talk about that later.
But that's, to me, that's intrinsic to like the nature of this story they're telling. There isn't much to cry over in one or two.
Right.
I'll play. I don't want to play devil's advocate, but I can see one thing that some people might hold against this. I observed this, but I don't have a problem with it. It was just an observation. But one thing I thought this movie, I hesitate to use the word lacked, because there's plenty of heart and humor and exchanges in it. But there is less of like you have a scene and then you have a joke, or you have the point of a scene and you find the humor in it. But the first two Bill and Ted movies, there's all these little exchanges and beats in between the big beats that are rife with humor. And there's less of that in this. There's like, here's a good example. They see a devil, they get his attention, they climb up. We talked about this in the last video. Yeah. This doesn't further anything, but just, oh, when I die, you can have a Megadeth collection. Like, that's a bunch of nothing that they just threw in for a few seconds. Right. The scene is, they're running in hell from their things. It's like, dude, hell sucks. That's a funny, and it's just, there's so many random little things, and there's less random in the cracks Bill and Ted-ness in this. Not so much that the movie weighed it down, because the main beats were all there, but there was a little quiet in times where I was used to them filling in the space more. If that's something that people are reading as something that's missing for them, okay, fine. But that, to me, didn't. There was too much good going on in this movie that I just observed. I'm like, there was less of that random shit that I'm used to. There was, because this movie is more so than the other was very plot driven, about like, we got to do the thing at the time and do the thing and make the thing happen and get the song.
Sure. Counterpoint. Yeah. I mean, if that was an argument somebody brought to the table, I'd say, okay, I think that's fair if that's what you felt. But for me, my mind, well, you were discussing like these wonderful little kind of like almost interstitial, transitional, or scene is ending, what a lovely little tie a bow on it. Two of them were just something Keanu did. After they see the Rufus hologram, first of all, my heart's already going, oh. Yeah. Because they see, again, like them seeing their spit, not indicating seeing their spit. They see Rufus's hologram. Yeah. They're not indicating seeing Rufus's hologram. But they have to move on. And as they move out of frame, what does Ted do? He waves. Yeah. He waves goodbye to Rufus. Yeah. And I'm like, my heart. And similarly, another Keanu moment, of course. And we haven't talked enough about Keanu, his performance in, I feel, or maybe I haven't, because
no, we didn't. In the last two videos, we didn't discuss.
Yeah, so we'll give him his due here. Right after I say this, right after when they meet their deathbed usses, and they get the song, and they're saying their goodbyes and everything, and they walk away. Ted just does a little to both of them, just like, here's my heart, my love, bye. And he doesn't say it, he just does it, and I'm just like, I love you, Ted. I fucking love you. I also love the fact that, like, I think immediately following that moment, It happens more than once in the movie where they're getting into the phone booth and Ted has to shut the door. I don't know if anybody else noticed this. Look for it. Ted shuts the door exactly the same way he did in Excellent Adventure. Just watch what Keanu does. It's Ted. It's so it happens. I think it at least happens twice, and I remember both times just being like, "I love you," because you're not just rolling in. They do move at a
different pace.
Yeah, a slightly slower frequency because they're older now. Of course they do. But I think it works because they're both still playing in the same transposed key, as it were. And also, one thing that I did really appreciate that some of the people who were critics of this movie didn't, because you called it a subplot. I felt like the movie straddled. I felt like it was equal parts sequel for Bill and Ted, and I felt like Thea and Billy were the other half reboot.
I do think it's a sequel and in its own way a reboot, and I feel bad because I feel like right when I said it, I'm like, it's more than a subplot. I know I misspoke there, but it's still Bill and Ted Face the Music, but I mean their daughters play such a huge part. It allows them to have. It allows us to do the thing we already know again.
Okay.
By being both and a reboot in every sense of the contemporary term, being gender swapped and
And I was like, this is how you do it, because number one, I love them. I love the fact that they support their dads as much as they do.
So we're talking the daughters now, because I have feelings.
Feel them, please.
I much like how I like that Bill and Ted, especially in the first movie, don't have the bullies and the girlfriends and the drama and all the usual things. The second this movie started, because I saw the first trailer and that was it. I'm like, I don't want to see trailers. I don't want to fucking know anything about this movie. I feel like every 10 years somebody says trailers give away too much, and there's a period where I thought older people who said that were wrong, but I really do have reached the age where I'm like, fucking trailers ruin everything now. And I went back and watched the second trailer for this movie after I saw it. I'm like, fuck, I'm glad I did not see that.
Right. I didn't either. Good.
Fuck, it shows them in therapy with the couple of couples. Like,
no!
It ruins everything. So anyway.
Oh,
no. And not big plot points, but I think jokes and little beats and moments deserve to breathe and be experienced for the first time. Anyway, I did not watch the trailer so I didn't know anything about the relationship of the girls. So when Bill and Ted are on the stage and they're talking about Missy, and then they're about to like my first, because I'm used to so much, just like in the 80s, I'm used to this is what teenagers are and this is what their plights are. I was so expecting those girls to be embarrassed by their dads because they're older and they're going to play the song and it's going to, Dad, you're embarrassing us. You're still trying to do rock and roll and your band failed. And the second they cut to them and they're like,
yes,
like into it, I'm like, okay, so we're not. And then when we first see them at the house and the garage door opens, at no point is that it's all love, it's all support, it's also they're music nerds.
Yeah.
First of all, and obviously they're Bill and Ted again. They're just the same. Same energy, same. But I respect the fuck out of the movie for not going down the obvious route where there's conflict with them, or they're mildly embarrassed by them, or there's some dad-daughter thing that they're not connecting on that they have to overcome. The movie just, again, the Bill and Ted movies have been really simple about certain things. Like they're buds, they love each other, they got each other's back, that's it. And this is like, it's their daughters, they love their dads, they support their music, they know their music history, and they're like, dude, your theremin was like, I love that this is their relationship and that they didn't overcomplicate it. And in fact, the simplicity of it is a real strength.
Yes.
And just their drive of like, they see, I love, first of all, they believe their dads.
Yeah.
Our parents are princesses and our dads went through history. So much so that they see that little egg-shaped thing, they're like, hey, future stuff. Like, oh.
Right.
Yeah. And then
they watch their dads go away and they're like, our dads are in trouble. I mean, I love
so the first thing is when Kelly comes back, they're like, hey, can we use that? I think we want to help our dads with the band. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a simple thing. We just need to help. I know it's just the reboot of the movie, but I love that the relationship is not complicated by anything. It's just enthusiasm and love for their dads and mutual respect. They don't have like the Ted conflict with like Ted's dad and him.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it I love
Or even or
and
even the conflict between the two of them, because like we mentioned about how their fathers in Excellent Adventure obviously don't get along, and then obviously swap Missy in the second movie, so they're obviously
yeah.
not getting along there. And yet so there, I mean, there's there could be every impulse to like kind of like continue that line, like, okay,
No.
we zigged, now we should zag and have the daughters like at odds and not like each other. And I'm like, no, because that's not what, first of all, like, we don't, it's too predictable. It's so not what women need as far as representation right now.
And this is fitting of what Bill and Ted is. In fact, where they were once two and the same, now they're basically four and the same. And like, I feel like that's how it should be.
And yet there's a separate thing, because like when I'm jumping ahead, but like when they actually get to step in and deal with death, because their dads can't handle this.
Right. They're the ones to fix it.
Exactly. And they're the ones who know how to walk in and just make it about the music. It's just about the music, man. And I love that. Okay. And also, I just want to say their names too. Yes.
Well, there's a payoff that they are, it's not just like, oh, we're music nerds. It turns out like, third act, it pays off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. And okay. So this is nice.
Are you talking about Samara Weaving?
Samara Weaving, number one. Okay. First off, I didn't even recognize her because I've never seen her look so small, because I saw Ready or Not. And I mean, she's a tiny woman. She's an actress, but she looked kind of like an adult. She looked like such a little kid in this.
We just had a little earthquake, but Samara Weaving, go on.
I'll just restate my case. Samara Weaving. Now I'm just silly. Samara Weaving. Okay. First of all, didn't even recognize her at first. I saw her in Ready or Not, like the rest of the world, and she looked very adult to me in that movie. Like, it's still young and beautiful and all that, but she was in a bridal gown and she's getting married, so it feels very adult. And she had strength in her face, so but she just looked like such a skinny kid in this movie, and I adored that, because she looked kind of dorky. She had like kind of boxy clothes too, to kind of maybe accentuate like a shorter, stouter
and her
kind
posture, her way of walking, and also the cadence of like her neck and shoulders and head. Like,
yes,
there's nothing cool about her, and yet that made me think she was quite cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. And then, okay, Bridget Lundy Payne,
yes,
as Billy, Ted's daughter. Okay, can I just say, as far as nailing the essence,
right?
Because there was one moment, I mean, she had it the whole movie, but there was one moment in particular where they had just watched their fathers go away, and they needed to go help them. And Thea's just like, I wish there was some way we could help them out, And Billy sits down and is like, yeah, but how? And I was like, you are Ted. You are female Ted. It's not even something that's like an impression. It's just capturing him. Perfect. And the two of them on the same page, same rhythm. And she had some clothes that were, in my opinion, not sexualized, but tight to the body to accentuate kind of her lankiness and her Tedness, with her, her curly dark hair just kind of like falling all in her face and everything like that. I already stated it, but I want to emphasize how much I loved them supporting their fathers and celebrating everything. They seemed so into everything and so geared toward lifting things up, just like, how can we help, and how can we kind of like, yes, we have an objective, a mutual objective, very Bill and Ted, But Billy and Thea, how can we build you up in such a way and make you feel appreciated and recognized so you'll want to come with us and help us out, you know, like in an ideal thing. So we're not taking advantage of you. We actually just want you to be a part of something great. And here's why you need to be a part of it, because here's why you are great. And I just was all about that. So they're a big, 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 big double plus for me with this movie. So watchable. So some people complained about the daughters, whatever, and I'm just like, are you insane? Exactly. No. I want them to get their own movie. If they never do, fine. But I would watch a fourth movie that's just Thea and Billy's adventures. Why not?
The only way I could be okay, like the Bill and Ted saga has always, if you're gonna give them a side movie, everything's even the first movie we set up the future, the band. The second movie, we're playing Battle of the Bands. We suck. We need to do the song. Third, like this is what the three movies have all been building towards. And now that we've done it, I feel like we're done. Like we're done.
True.
However, if you're gonna do something with them, it's got to be completely unrelated to that story. It's got to be their own thing, their own bullshit. It has no one. Even if someone comes in the future, it's not about. Every time someone's coming from the future, it's about the thing that you need to do. Even Denali, or even like the second one, is trying to prevent that thing from happening. I didn't mention this in the Bogus Journey video, but it's again the series. It's part of the charm, but it's constantly just contradicting whatever the fuck. Like if the future's so perfect, then how is Denomalos and his people existing? You know, that doesn't fit into what Rufus said in the beginning.
John Carlos, my mother told me when I was a boy, a young Catholic boy, that there will always be good in the world, and there will always be evil in the world.
I also forgot to mention this in our Bogus Journey video, so I'll just mention this now. It's the same thing about how like, and I guess I mean they do it in all the movies essentially in a weird way, but the idea that like time is happening even though it's already happened.
Yeah.
Much like how in the first one, like their separation is imminent. The fact that Denomalos is preaching to his people, and he goes like, the second point in their history is about to happen, like the Battle of the Bands, you know? And I'm like, but it already happened. So how's it about to, because whatever. Well, here's the thing I like about this movie. This movie, it's the worst one of the three when it comes to that kind of shit.
The whole timeline,
and it's still just like a zippy good Bill and Ted movie. Don't we're here for if that shit mattered, it wouldn't be a Bill and Ted movie.
Yes, I agree.
Worth noting for any viewers out there that care about this sort of thing, but Bridget Lundy Payne, is non-binary and goes by they them.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
And it's one of the. I don't know if you want to call it a struggle that, hetero, cis people who've had their own fucking he and she pronouns their whole life, but trying to I'm trying to refer to her as they.
Right.
Fun fact.
I agree. Yeah. It's okay. Cool. So they. It's one that I struggle with too. I have my own history with they being like a way to cover, like, because I used to want to talk about him. And if I was in company that I didn't know if they could handle me talking about him, if I said of them, then I can speak freely, and maybe they'll suspect, maybe they won't, but it's a way to like test the water. So it was almost like a cover. I've had this discussion with my sister because she has some friends who are non-binary and who I want so badly to like honor their identity and just address them in a way that they are comfortable with. And I feel like I fail all the time because my own natural inclination is to go, no, it must be he or she, and it's not rooted in any kind of idealism or anything like that. It's just rooted in my history with pronouns, with playing the pronoun game as it's put in Chasing Amy.
Is try.
Exactly.
And
so I will try with Bridget.
Several years in the future, that might just become the thing that's easier for everyone to adjust to. I not you're referring to like hiding the identity of like another nude, another he. But
Yeah.
just in life, like I've experienced that too. Just hiding if just the secret of someone, even if you're talking about like the spoilers of a movie, you're like they may live or die, or if you're talking
Right.
about that bitch over there, and we're gonna refer to they instead of he or she, just.
Yeah.
But the new trick is not, because that to me comes naturally when you're
Mm.
using that pronoun to hide a truth, but to bring light to someone's truth.
Yes. Yes.
It's just something that you just got to work on. And there's
Yeah.
certain times where once it clicks in my head, I can be quite good at referring to they thems. But sometimes when they're playing a female character in a movie, it's the she still slips out. But yeah, I just want to point
Right.
that
But
out.
okay, so I'll just say Bridget Lundy Payne, I look
Yeah,
forward to seeing their
yeah.
future exploits. And if they ever play Billy again, I'm
So
here
down.
for it. I'm here
Um,
for it.
I've never seen her. She was like a breath of fresh air for me. Apparently, she was on Atypical, which I don't watch. But
I don't either.
there's an audience of people who already know her. Whereas I came in knowing Samara Weaving,
Hmm.
but was instantly like, I mean, and Samara Weaving is great, but Samara Weaving isn't doing an exact Bill impression. You don't have to.
No.
Their Ted impression,
Yes.
constantly just the posture and the head nods, and just it's sublime. While still Samara's giving me it's great. I love both of their costumes, by the way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the red shirt and the overalls, and I just have this I don't know, it's such an oddly specific thing. I don't think anyone's gonna care, but my friend, her stage name, her performing name, she's a musician, her name's Jessie Deluxe. And in the
Okay.
early 2000s, she plays like pretty hard rock, and but she used to wear like a wetsuit top. It was like her lucky top when she played shows, and it was very like and it looks sort of slick and futuristic, but like I don't know. When I saw well Billy. No wait, she's whatever. Her their tight little top. It just made me think of I
That's
don't.
Billy. That's Billy.
That's Billy. It's not. I don't think Billy is necessarily that athletic. I just think it was purely aesthetics, and it made me think of my
Yes.
friend Jessie, who like
That's nice.
wore it for rock shows. She didn't wear it to go fucking surfing.
Right.
I don't know. It just informed me of something. So I love them. Uh,
Yes.
there's there's something I want to praise the movie about, which is and I think, God, I can't remember if I already mentioned this or not, that like it doesn't do all the sequely things.
Like?
Well, like, okay, so like Bogus Journey obviously doesn't do the sequely things. This one does it a little bit because it is 20, 30 years later, so we need the nostalgia hits a little bit.
Sure.
So like here's your Ted's dad appearances, and we got Missy back. It's a
Hmm.
reboot, so we put the girls in a phone booth, but like it's not relying on the member berries. It's not relying on the nostalgia to carry it through. I
No.
genuinely expected, though, at least the way nostalgic media has been these last few years, I
Hmm.
completely expected San Diego's High School Football Rules to be dropped in this movie. And the fact that they didn't, you know what I mean?
Wow.
They didn't do all that shit that you expect sequels to do. And I thought maybe, even though the two writers are pretty sharp guys, I didn't know if all these years later they were going to cave in and give us the nostalgic-y, hey, remember the Member Berry sequel? It's not that. It's not that Member Berry-y. So props to them.
Yeah.
Um,
And as far as yes,
no, go ahead.
go on. No, as far as carrying on a legacy, also though, I mean, I love that we do get to see the Rufus hologram because it does warm my heart, as I mentioned when Ted just with his bye, but I Kristen Shaw
Mm,
as Kelly
mm.
is so Rufus's daughter.
Well, speaking of legacy, I love that they got a stand-up comedian to play the daughter of a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
You could have cast any actor, but I love they got someone who started out doing stand-up.
And she's not just like they actually veer away from like a Thea. That's very special, the Thea and Billy thing of them just being kind of like little extensions of
little
their
copies,
fathers. Yeah. She's very much her own person. She's got her own vibe, and it totally works for the movie. But that's the thing, is that I still totally buy the relationship that this is her father and she's carrying on his legacy, and that she believes what he believed, and that she's fighting her mother. And Holland Taylor's great.
But now the whole story, even not just Bill and Ted's, the whole, even the future, like it's all about parents and kids and legacies now. Yeah, it's great. Well, also her name's Kelly. George Carlin's daughter's name is Kelly, so that's a sweet little.
I didn't know. Don't hurt me.
Eddie's gonna cry again. Yeah.
No, shut up. I'm not.
But it is sweet though, isn't it? Isn't that a nice thing to do?
No. Yes.
Another thing.
Shut up.
Speaking of parents and legacies, this movie gave me so much fucking joy.
Yeah.
When they go to hell, and then Ted's dad's like, "Oh my God, you guys died and went to hell. You guys traveled through time, married princesses."
Yeah.
And from that point forward, he is helpful and supportive. Especially because this movie, we already had the first movies, but they set it up again in this one, so that it's still the new conflict of like, you guys are losers. Your stupid song at this wedding, you guys should get jobs. You're setting a bad example for your daughters. This is still a conflict that to have him not only in this one movie have a turnaround, but for all three to now have this moment where like he has it out with Ted and they hug. And then I love that Bill's like, "Thanks," and he's like, "I'm not talking to you."
No, yeah. And he's healed things with his son. That's
it. But like, this is Oh, that beat! I laugh. I've seen the movie 3 times. I laugh every time. And Bill's like, face.
It's perfect. It's absolute perfection.
Logan, I'm not talking to you. Oh.
Well, okay. If we're diving into hell, like also, I love basically like the one who gets them all there. Anthony Kerrigan is Dennis Caleb McCoy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he was the one who played that. I just the whole movie.
It's one of the first things that we looked up after we saw the movie. And it's funny, I know he's in recent years very beloved for Barry, which I haven't seen. But I hear he steals the goddamn show.
You would fucking love, but he also contributes. He doesn't just steal; he contributes. He's
but
vital.
I've heard many nuanced praises for him. I'm pretty sure he played Victor Zsasz in Gotham, which I remember going like,
"Oh, really?"
Like, if only it wasn't on Gotham. Like, I actually am very okay with this casting. No, that dude's great, and he gives so much through all that makeup.
Yes.
And first of all, I mean, it's the death joke all over again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little regurgitative, but it still works because the humor still works. But I'm a stiff, serious character like Death, and then we peel away his layers, and he wants to be. In fact, you were talking about how like we don't often see Bill or Ted get mad or upset, but we do see them struggle a bit in Bogus Journey.
Yes.
This is the first time we see them get kind of irritated with Death, but I love that in this one, we see them get like annoyed. Like there's a very like, shut the fuck up kind of eye-rolly like irritation when they're just trying to get up these steps in hell. And he's like, "Oh, my real name's fucking Steve or whatever." Trying to get the momentum going, and then it getting brought down by his silliness.
Yeah. Oh,
it's little beats of humanity. That first time where he like kills, and he's like, oh no.
Yeah.
I like watching the facade melt a bit, to the degree where I actually was disappointed that because it felt like a setup. When he's talking with Death, and he's like, "Well, maybe I can play the triangle, or whatever." He's like, "Well, I can dance." He's like, "Oh," he's like, "Why don't you go over there and you practice your dance?" Okay. Much like how like the good Robot Us's got to dance with the band and the fucking station got to play bongo and bongo. Like I really thought I was gonna have a robot go out there and start fucking dancing. And then they're like, "Oh, he's gonna come back with his bio going to the future." I was like, "Oh, that sucks." I really thought, why'd you tease me like that, movie? However, I do like when they're in the future, you see him dance a little bit during the
Yeah,
song.
on his own. Yeah, yeah.
On his own. I just think it should have been on stage. But I do like that when he's dancing on his own, he's like the Tin Man dance.
Yes.
I thought
It's
that was kind of,
totally,
I thought that was kind of sweet.
yeah, I liked it too. But I mean, the exchange, I even wrote it down because I loved it so much. Just like Bill, okay, we get it. You're a grateful, totally insecure, somehow dead robot named Dennis Caleb McCoy.
Yeah.
And then, and then when they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do, and one of them, Bill or Ted, just kind of is just like, yeah, I don't even know, dude. And then Dennis just kind of wanders in like,
He comes
yeah,
into frame.
I don't even know, dude. Like, but I love that. I mean, again, it's similar. Of course, there's a parallel with like Death, but the thing is, Death's thing was that he was a sore loser, and that he needed to kind of learn to play. He needed to learn to play well with others because he was kind of a brat. Dennis Caleb McCoy, it's like he's just completely socially inept, has never interacted on like a human level. So to learn common courtesy and things like that, like who better to teach him than Bill and Ted?
Yeah.
But I love that there's a crisis screaming at them the entire time. Also, oh my God, in terms of like things from the prior movies as far as their decency and their values, one of the things that I absolutely fucking love about this movie is the fact that like after all of the time travel, like trying to like outrun the evil thems in the future to the point where they actually make their amends in the future and everything like that, and then they confront Dennis and they find out that he killed their daughters, and they've got the song. And he was like, well, I can't kill you now that you've got the song. And then Bill and Ted's there of one mind, doesn't even think about it, just breaks them and says, no, kill us, send us to hell. And I'm just like, you're my heroes. Because you didn't even think about like the rest of the world. Like, you'll figure it out. You'll find a way to get a hold of the song again. It'll be fine. Because the biggest thing right now is your daughters are in hell. And you got to go save them. That's the priority. And I was just like, what great dads, you know.
Yeah.
It made me so proud of them because they have their priorities straight. They even had them with the princesses. They were just highly dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Like the love was scattered, but it was present.
Yeah.
It just needed to
There's
be
no
focused.
doubt. Even before, like, they love their wives.
Yes.
That's not in question, ever.
No, it's their cluelessness about how they love them.
It's the specifics about the relationship that need to work. I'm glad that you mentioned, you know, that because they're their dads. It reminded me of a thing, and it's let me step back. There's a thing that going back to them being a duo.
Yes.
And being a unit. That both they within the movie and also the greater movie acknowledges. I found it interesting in Bogus Journey. I saw some, like, it was either I can't remember if it was an article. It wasn't a video essay. It was either like an article or someone posted maybe like their own opinion on Facebook. But they were talking about how Bogus, and I read this maybe 2 or 3 months ago, about how they thought that Bill and Ted were slightly progressive in forwarding this notion of polygamy, in that they seem to operate a lot as the four of them. And even though they're not blatantly polygamists, and even though they're not a four-person unit, the fact that in Bogus Journey, they refer to like, our girlfriends are most chaste, and like they propose at the same time. They operate together a lot. It's our girlfriends. So in a weird way, I went, that's interesting. Like, if I was a polygamist, would I find a vague sense of early progressive representation, just a hint of it? You know, like when there's things that are subtle and, you know, 20, 30 years later, they become, I don't know. But it's an interesting idea. I don't call them polygamists, but I was thinking about that. So when I watched the third movie and they're going into counseling because the princesses are not happy about we and us, I was thinking, oh man, whoever wrote that is going to feel really betrayed by this movie. Because the thing that I thought was kind of cute in 2 apparently isn't that fucking cute to the princesses in 3.
I
or at least over time, it's taken its toll. Because, but I do think it's interesting that not only do they, you know, they're a duo and we love you. I adore that when Bill and Ted find everybody in hell, their daughters look up and go, "Dads!" They say "dads."
Yes. Yes.
Fuck. They kept like that. They kept that duality going, and it's just one fucking line. It's one word, but it means everything to me and tells me everything, and it tells me that the writers also knew what they were doing.
And now, actually, you've given me another element to love about it, because I didn't know about the deleted scene of them like smashing rocks in Bogus Journey. But one of the things that I just kind of intrinsically responded to was they just started digging in hell. Their daughters, they just started like going,
no,
and then like, dads, and then they just drop their shovels but they're of course they're like, well, when in Rome, we're in hell.
And well, they don't seem.
Maybe this will help us think. Yeah,
well,
maybe this will help us think.
First, when that scene happened, I'm like, oh, we never, because you other people are breaking rocks in hell, but you never see Bill and Ted do it. So I thought that by having the other, now we actually get to see them do it. I thought that was a nice little callback.
Yeah, and I thought it was charming on its own.
Put out by it. They're generally just. I think they've been asking, "How are you doing?" Like, all right, we're dead. We're in hell.
Yeah, right. It's hell.
But they're not like, "Oh, we're fucked. We missed you." It's just, yeah, I'm all right.
Yeah. But I'd have to ask, I have some acquaintances who are polygamists. I'd have to ask them if that ever had any kind of like influence or was on their radar. That would be an interesting conversation to have. But what I will say, the only reason why it never read that way to me, I can't speak to polygamists, but the only reason it didn't read that way to me in Bogus Journey was because their proposals, it did feel largely about their bond, because their proposals were even modified versions of each other's. It was like
that's fresh one.
One wrote one, and then another one ran it through like a thesaurus feature on Microsoft Word, and then just read the alternate versions in unison. It's one of my favorite things actually about that moment. I'm glad we got to bring it up again. But yeah, I don't know. I never thought about it that way. I love that it was introduced.
But I love just new food for thought. But then I just remember I really thought about it during that the couples counseling scene. I was like, oh. But yeah, the idea of them being a duo, being dads, being fiancés, and then I started thinking about this. I didn't think about this until very recently, and I can't believe it didn't enter my head as a real point. But in the first movie, when they have one report left, but it's the two of them. One report, but it's the two of them. Everyone else is doing a report. At no point does a teacher say this is a group project, get into groups.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing their history report alone. Even the teacher's like, but Bill and Ted.
I mean, it made me think about, it's funny because you already made me think about it a bit and I just didn't talk about it in terms of like their in the first movie, how we don't really get a sense of them being cool, but we don't get a sense of them being uncool. They're just kind of like in their own thing. And the only other movie I can think of where that's like the whole moral of the story, that's the way it should be, is like Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, where like the crux of their one kind of fatal flaw as in their union is the fact that one of them cares so much about what other people think, and the other one is just like, I never thought we weren't that cool in high school. High school was a blast to me. We had each other. That's all we needed. It's I love that movie too. But one of the things about that I really, it's one of the things that I just like really appreciate about this is like for the first time their union, their not duality, but like their twosome, and for some not that kind, but like the group of four becomes kind of a problem, like kind of a hindrance. Like there needs to be some kind of separation. And I love the fact that like just to jump ahead, it's one of the many things that I love about the ending is the fact that like not only do they finally express to each of the princesses I love you and say their name, Joanna or Elizabeth, but I love the fact that both Joanna and Elizabeth have different responses. Elizabeth says I love you too, and Joanna just says, we know. And I'm like, because they both do, and even like one is like I, and the other one is we. I mean, that's different. They're both different. So I was like, oh, so everybody's kind of owning a little more individuality in their own way. It's not like problem solved, but it's nice. It's a nice way to kind of send them off.
They have a subplot. That's the proper term. And
yes.
after being the two things that the boys go, ooh, pretty, we want, and the second movie where they at least are in there's some peril, they have to be rescued. But this one, they get their own story. I enjoy the movie, but if I had a complaint, my complaint would be, and this isn't a bad complaint to have, considering the movie is 90 minutes, too much story. Like you could have excised the princess's story altogether, and I could have gotten more of the daughters, or more Bill. You know what I mean? Or if you made the movie 2 hours, but like, I mean, what a problem to have. I like all your A story, your B story, and your C story, and I want more. But but it's nice. It's a nice idea to get the princesses their own storyline, but it feels like for such a short amount of running time, even though it feels like maybe the story's a little simple, it's actually jam-packed, full of shit in fucking 90 minutes. There's like a lot to stuff in there. And if anything, I wish it didn't feel so stuffed, because I would have liked to have spent a little more time with the princesses, or like to spend a lot more time with the daughters. But I'm not complaining. It'd be nice if we got more. And again, there's a lot of limitations in this movie, and it has to work within them. But what it delivers within them is so satisfying. So satisfying.
I have one slight critique, and it's largely about me and the way I receive things. And I had an epiphany a while ago. I have some critiques
about you too.
You know what? Don't smile at me.
Go on.
But no, I had an epiphany after having an edible about a year ago. I mean, the way most of us do. And I was watching with a group, Hocus Pocus, in honor of, the pending Halloween holiday. And I had never watched it stoned before. And all of the stuff with the kids felt dire and just made me so sad. I was like, I can't watch this. This is too sad. And all the
you
stuff
can't
with
watch
the witch...
it high, because that movie's fun.
Right. No, I've seen the movie. I know it, but I know that movie by heart too. But the thing is, like, High, I had never seen High before, and all of a sudden, weird things happen to me, especially with comedy, when I'm stoned and I watch something. Yeah. And so I was watching all the stuff with the kids, and it just was depressing, because all they were doing was fighting, trying to overcome something, trying to outrun something, and all that. And then I'd watch the witches just on their own, and I'd just be like, they're having so much fun. And it was so resplendent, it was like fireworks in my soul every time I could just watch them, because I was watching people just have fun. It didn't matter that they were evil, they're having fun. And then when they interacted with the kids, it was like kind of like, oh, I don't know how to feel about this, but then the witch would do something fun and be like, oh. So anyway, I do remember all that. I think something like that happens to me with, even though I don't like the evil us's and they make me because they're so irresponsible and reckless and awful people, at least they have fun. So the only critique I have for Face the Music, especially the second time, the first time I watched it didn't even register, but the second time I watched it, it was just having them visit the future thems, the prior to the deathbed thems, because they were such dicks and they weren't even having fun. They were just like miserable, awful people who were just committing one atrocity after another to outrun their horrible fate. And I understand they have a story too, but I don't sympathize with them because they're such pricks, and and since they're not having fun at it even, there's a part of me that's just kind of like, when I watch their scenes, and they go by fast. It's not like, and that ruins the movie for me. But it is just a thing that I'm like, oh, this is less fun the second time around. Like, this is not what I associate with the movie. This isn't what I come for,
I definitely sympathize and associate with the main Bill and Ted's, because they're constantly, man, these fucking guys. And I'm with you. I'm like, yeah, these fucking guys.
Yeah, right. But even that, like, it's sad. It's punching and punching and punching.
I definitely get a lot of joy out of the fake British ones. Just because they're just ridiculous, and his indication with the hands, and I'm having a little more fun there, and especially when they since they know that they've already experienced what they've been through, so they do the buckets so they can't see. He's like, oh, he's gonna do the thing. I didn't want him to do the thing.
The buckets is
Hilarious.
Genius.
It's such an old comedy, but just to see them like, ooh, the balcony of the
It works. The classics, the basest stuff that would have made you laugh if like your funny uncle or your dad would have like done it around the house.
Yeah.
That still works.
You know
if
what?
It's still
There's
somebody you like.
I said that there are less like kind of like the jokes within the gaps from Bill and Ted, but there's actually a lot of other jokes they just don't that fill in the gaps that just don't come from Bill and Ted. That I'm kind of you get some from Dennis the Robot, and some of it's just ridiculous. It's just more Bill and Ted nonsense that I go, huh? What? It's the charm. Like the fact that his name's Dennis, right? The robot.
Yeah, Dennis Caleb McCoy.
Dennis shoots not only Ted's dad, but it vaporizes. I don't care that it vaporizes the SWAT van. It's that the SWAT van goes to hell. And it's only there so they can all get in it to go back. But
yes!
But like the van died and went to hell.
I know.
Whatever. And here's another thing. I started giggling so hard when they're leaving hell and the van's flying, and the first time I saw a body go thunk off the van, I'm like, it's just, and then another body would go boom, and then you see the interior of the van, and you hear like thunk, thunk, and they cut back to the exterior, and it's just hitting people all the way up.
You're falling down.
Yes. Like you're already falling into hell, and now you have to get hit in the face with a van too. But the fact that like, you know, I don't know if it's the director or a VFX supervisor who suggested it or the director, but either way, someone said, if it's going up and they're going down, logistics say this should happen. Because there's a version of that where it just goes up and you see some bodies in the background. But
right.
Animators, they all took the time to make this. I was just giggling every time a body, the way it was like the body hitting the propeller of Titanic.
Yeah.
Times 5 for me. Just thunk.
I don't laugh
Thunk.
when the bodies hit the propellers in Titanic.
I'll never forget because I saw that movie in theater 4 times, and I didn't even want to see it 4 times.
I know.
But I remember at least two of the screenings, people would laugh. But one guy, I just remember the guy starts falling, and then when he hits the propeller, most people went, "Oh!" And that made the movie better for me.
I don't know who you are. And yet, the paradox is I know exactly who you are.
I'm Hannibal. I want... there's a few...
God.
One of the little things I like about all 3 of these movies that I love that even though none of the time travel logistics are ever thought out and make any sense, I do love that character is thought out and makes sense, but also at least even in the non-science of the departure point is imminent or whatever, at each point in each movie, less so Bogus Journey. Bogus, well actually, in Excellent Adventure and in Face the Music, it's both at a point where there's risk, where there's a loss of failure. The first one is Ted's dad is going to send Ted away, and the band is going to break up. Like, you're not going to do the thing.
Yeah.
And immediately that's when, you know, Rufus shows up. And I love that in this one, they're having this pretty serious talk about, like, we've been trying to get this, we haven't found the song. And then Ted's like, I went to I think it was Guitar Center. He's like, but someone's going to offer me like, you know, $6,000 for this guitar. And he's like, are you saying? He's like, yeah, it's the first time one of them talks about throwing in the towel, and immediately Kelly shows up. And I'm like, I love that it's always at the point of despair.
Yeah.
And then I realized, but not in Bogus Journey. Oh, but the reason someone comes back in time in Bogus Journey is a bad guy. And the point is going to be, we're going to play the battle.
Yeah.
He's trying to ruin this pivotal point. And if anything, Rufus comes to save them and make sure they get in. Because Rufus has to pretend to be a woman to let them into the whatever.
Yeah,
Don't think about it too much. It's just, oh, it was you the whole time? Excellent. How else would you get in the band? I mean, we're getting the Battle of the Bands, you know. This movie, though, look, I loved it. I like it. I like it a lot. And I had a great time watching it the first time. I actually liked it more the second time, just because things are new and exciting, and it moves at such a pace. But the second time I connected emotionally to everything more. I was really on the fucking journey with like everyone. The third time I watched it, not a bad thing, but the third time was when I let my brain start to think about what's happening, and I'm like, does not compute a lot. But it's so props to the director, Dean, I can't pronounce his last name, but Galaxy Quest guy, for continuing even though each movie has a different flavor, they each managed to convey the sort of freeze, whatever. It's Bill and Ted, and he manages to carry that, especially considering the fact that this movie makes less sense than the other two, because they didn't write the song. That's had this bad effect, right? That there's time fluctuations. But we know that they already wrote the song because the future already happened. But again, the fact that the past seems to happen again, I don't know how, because now it's having an adverse effect.
Yeah.
Why is it having an adverse effect if it's already happened? Whatever. Let's go with the idea that, it's so here's the
What did I?
you already said this, so I'm going to go with you on that. But here's what's funny to me. I like that they're like, hey, in 76 minutes, and I love when movies are like, well, we're going to kind of do real time, and I love that they're like, well, it's like an 86-minute movie, and it's been about 10 minutes in, whatever. At this date and at this location, you guys play the song, which is in 76 minutes. So we're going to help you. Here's the guitars, get to fucking work. And they're like, oh, how are we going to come up with the song? Well, let's go steal it from ourselves. Well, if you steal it from yourselves 2 years in the future, why don't they have the song? Because 76, so 2 years for them past, minus 76 minutes, they've already played the song. So why don't they have it? Like the first time I'm just like with them and I'm like, yeah. But every time they jump further and further in the future, I'm like, but that's already now 5 years, now 7 years, removed from when they've already done it. So why do these versions not have it? Unless my logistics is they're going to future versions of themselves that haven't written it, and it's technically a different time stream. It's all very confusing. But when they get to their old men versions of themselves and they're like, here it is. And I'm like, why do you have it now? And they didn't have it then when it was recorded on the date and time. I don't understand. Whatever, we need the song. We're going to the future. We can't get the song, and now we have the song. And don't think about it. It's funny.
I have an answer for you.
But I've spent a majority of my life always loving that. So to anyone watching, I don't always think this way with Bill and Ted. I'm allowing myself to think this way for the sake of this.
I have a very simple answer for you. Why all of that is happening?
Yeah.
Because the whole timeline is fucked up. That's the point.
Sure. Well, I find it frustrating that
it's a construct of the plot that the timeline is fucked up. So they could literally find anything in the future. That's why they think, okay, maybe if we go deeper in the future, maybe we can like outrun this ripple effect of like, the future where we don't have it, and maybe we can catch up with the future where we do. And does it make sense? No, but it.
Why them as old men have the thing that they already recorded that?
But it does. But you know why it makes sense? Because it makes sense in the movie. Because they do catch up with the reality where they wrote the song. And the fact that they knew that just makes me think they're geniuses.
What, the old men reality?
No, the fact that the young ones, the ones of them in 2020 are continually moving forward. They know to keep moving forward to outrun this ripple so they can finally find a reality where the song was already written and take it from themselves.
The weird thing is, so like they refer to the princesses, they don't just travel through time, they're taking them to alternate realities to see where they'd be, if there's a reality.
If they were ever happy, yeah.
Because we've heard about time travel, but this is the first time they refer to realities and not just time. And I've thought about the idea of that maybe Bill and Ted, are visiting different realities. But every time they go forward in the future, what they're going to is a byproduct of the previous thing they went to, which means it's still the same timeline, it's still the same reality.
But if you're outrunning a ripple,
and then they just catch up to the ripple when they're old.
They bypass the ripple when they get to their deathbed selves. It's the same thing in the first movie, where if they've already written the song and already united, and they can return to a reality where the future is like all excellent, then they can still salvage it,
The old men is essentially the trash can. Remember the trash can.
Exactly. Attached to time travel, but not directly correlating to this particular aspect of it. One thing that I love about the aspect they introduce with the kind of de facto reboot with Thea and Billy is the fact that it's not just about traveling. There's an extra element added because the first person they try to travel back in time and get to acquire for this band that they're assembling to help out their dads is Jimi Hendrix, who doesn't believe them and is just kind of like, well, fuck you. So the rationale is we need to like kind of go back in this food chain of influencers to these great musicians and just like, well, who inspired you? Well, who inspired you? Well, who inspired? And it's
it could have been just this random thing. Like, we're going to go back and get this guy. And that's what I was expecting when it started. I actually really connected to that aspect a lot when they got Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
And got him to interact.
Brought him back with Jimi Hendrix,
Right. But to me, it was when, I'll get to the Mozart in a bit, but they go to Mozart and then, God, I can't remember her name. Flute lady.
I have it. Hold on, I have it written down. Shit, where are you? I had them all written down. Just keep talking. I'll give it to you.
I mean, I'm kind of regurgitating what you just said, but
Ling Lun.
Ling Lun. The fact that Mozart wanted, like, they visited Ling Lun because of Mozart, and then they visited drummer lady because Ling Lun. Grom. I love that. That's the drive for who they get is. Inspiration. I just really respond to that as so much, especially when you're probably only amassing 15-20 minutes of runtime for all their scenes. So you're not giving them much to do, but even within that little modest thing, it could have just been random, but you're informing so much with a short amount of time. And I adore that. I also really random. I at the opening production company logo, after Orion is a rock with cave drawings of like, and you clearly tell it's Bill and Ted, and there's some guitars and stuff. But I went and paused and looked at it, and I'm like, that's Bill, that's Ted. And then look at people were holding like tambourines, so it wasn't totally accurate. But people would think that Grom, when returned, drew that
and etched the story. Oh my God, I didn't.
And it's all there at the very beginning of the movie, and I'm like, that's fucking cool.
That is, I didn't even notice that either time that I saw it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy. Oh, that makes me so happy.
And also, you know what made me happy?
Yeah.
Because there's it's hard to give me warm feels when we're not, like when a movie pauses. I hate when something feels like filler, if it's not connecting, and I'm just like tapping my toe going, come on. Especially when a movie this tight. So when they when Hendrix and Armstrong get out of the little egg pod, and Mozart's playing, and Jimmy's like, yeah, and that's because we hear someone else mention the other one. Jimmy doesn't tell them to go there, but the way he reacts informs me that that's why they're there. So anyway, he plugs in his guitar and he starts playing along, and I remember thinking like, okay, I know where he's gonna play the thing. I got it. And then the scene just sort of keeps going. And the way he's just sort of, and I love Louis Armstrong's support. First of all, the Louis Armstrong guy is fucking great.
I love him. He's
Holy
adorable.
shit. He's great. he's adorable, but also like he's just right.
No, the second he started speaking it, I was just kind of like, is it? And then he really got into that. And I was like,
Oh, but his smile is so infectious.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes.
But when
Yes.
Jimmy's just kind of shredding along with them, and then it cuts to Mozart, and then it cuts back to Jimmy, and then it cuts back to, and then it just becomes, it's not a funny scene.
No.
It just becomes something kind of sweet,
Yeah.
something kind of beautiful, and it
Yeah.
just stays. And you can see, Billy and Thea in the back kind of just, and it just became a nice moment. And in the middle of zipping over here and look at all of ourselves there and jokes and sci-fi shit, I got just like a really nice moment. And at the end of the movie, I'm like, you know what I really like was just fucking shredding in the street to Mozart. It was just really sweet, man.
And without me even being conscious of it as it's happening, it doesn't pull me out because it is magnetic, that moment. But it also does, like, in this incredibly subliminal way, because I'm so in that moment, I'm not thinking beyond it, but it does plant the seed for exactly what is going to happen in the finale. Oh, yeah. And it just kind of lets you know, you can expect this from us. And that's the thing, is I don't even think that it's not even a moment that moves me inexpressibly or anything. It's just so nice. It's just so nice.
And that is what moves me, is just feeling nice. And in 2020, I need to feel nice.
One thing that, yes.
No, you go ahead.
Just one thing. It's a tiny moment, but it's one of the things. It's another one of the Thea and Billy moments right after. It's just a take. It's just a facial take for both of them. The reaction to when Death and their dads, all like group hugging and everything like that. Oh, there's a bunch with them. But
there's a bunch.
It makes me laugh so hard because I'm so connected with them. But just when they see their dads reconnect with Death and they both in unison just go, it's adorable. I love it. What did you think?
My favorite is when they walk in on Louis jamming, and they're there for a few seconds, and as the time passes, slowly this happens. Just a little. Oh, it's so good. I love that they're just music fans. It's so good.
Yes.
Yeah. If I remember it, I felt like there was another timey thing that I was like, huh, but whatever.
Oh God.
But one thing that I really, I don't often like retcons, but this movie to me, because I remember when this movie was first announced as finally happening, even before it was happening, when they were just kind of saying this is what the pitch is, it was Bill and Ted haven't written the song yet.
Yeah.
And I remember going, bullshit, I saw the end of Bogus Journey. Like, their televised national. I remember when I watched Bogus Journey, it felt like this is the thing that we've been waiting for. And the fact that it gets televised all over the world. And the fact that they say it brought everybody together, and you see people in England and like in Spain dancing in their fucking kitchens and shit. And people in the middle of like a bar in I don't know which Asian country.
Even the headlines, like Middle East achieves peace finally, something like that.
Even if you're misreading it, all the headlines go on to tell you not just about the immediate future, but the long-term future, about all the things that Bill and Ted achieve.
Right.
So I found the premise of this movie a little disconcerting. And I had to go like, well, I guess they just performed a song and people took notice, but this isn't the song. I did find out, though, that in the commentary, I think for Bogus Journey, they talk about they didn't write all the end credits. That wasn't. They had a script for Bill and Ted that ended with them, performing, and then in post-production, producers, people had this idea, but that had nothing to do with the writers. That was all added after the fact. So, being that, even though I like some of those headlines, and I think some of them are very funny, the fact that they didn't come from the two writers, I'm okay with just pushing them aside.
And do you know why I don't have to?
Because you don't care?
No. Alternate realities.
Shut up.
Eternal threat. That is the eternal threat
Oh, you know why?
in
It's
these
because
movies.
the time ripples. But the time ripples are because they
Yeah,
didn't write the song. Why didn't
right.
they write the song if they've already
Because
performed in Bogus
because
Journey?
all of a sudden somehow there unearths one timeline where they conceivably didn't write the song, and the more power is given to that timeline, and the further and further they get away from just
But this,
making the song, the
but they don't
closer
ever
they get to
establish
that
that we're
time.
in a new timeline. That's not like a thing. That's too much work.
No,
That's too much work.
no, you're
I don't
doing
like.
too much work. You're doing too much work.
Although I should have mentioned this in the Bogus Journey video. I love
Yes.
that. Well, I love that there's a line where evil Bill calls Missy future wife, and then one of the articles is that Missy married Nomalos, and I'm like, that's awesome. No, one of my favorite headlines. It's such a stupid joke, but it makes me giggle. It's like a sports magazine or something, and it's got a
Oh
photo of
yeah.
a race car, and it says "Death wins the Indy 500." But the quote is, "I didn't know I could run that fast."
Yes. I do appreciate that.
It's such like a dumb like Mad Magazine silly like because also on top of just being a funny line, have
Yeah.
you ever stopped to picture it?
Yes.
All these race
Yes, I
cars going
have.
like the
Yes.
fucking death.
Yes, I have. Of course I
and
have, because it's way too funny not to.
and here's what makes it extra funny. He's over. What do you mean? I didn't know I could run that fast. Well, what are you doing at the Indy 500 anyway? Like you had to have known. No one's in the Indy 500 on accident. So I love that he's like, well, I would like to give this shots, but you know, and then anyway, that's a good. Oh, do you have a thing? Because I was about to
I
say
have
something.
one more. No, I have one more point to kind of like just bring up for your timeline thing. Do you know another thing that kind of like helps boost, I believe, my whole alternate reality theory that carries me
Yeah,
through this entire trilogy now? Um, the fact that they can travel into the future and find out what happens in it, but the fact that Holland Taylor's character, as the great leader, says that there were other interpretations of the information that
yeah,
Rufus was acting on. If
yeah.
there were other interpretations, and if
Oh,
they're not
yeah.
clear whether they should die or not, they can travel into the future and find out. But the thing is, if the future is constantly fluctuating, or if there are alternate timelines that just kind of manifest because new possibilities open up, it makes it so that there is a destiny, but that it's not definite. That it's still
Mm.
malleable, it can still be manipulated, it can still be fucked with even. And so nothing is really certain. It can still change. There's still ripples in this reality. That was another thing that fed my
Are you
theory there.
saying the future is not set? There is no fate but what we make for ourselves? Terminator 2. Because
Yes.
you kind of are, yeah.
Just wanted to bring that up. What did you
No, that actually was
segue?
that was another big thing for me to kind of it kind of felt like a retcon, but it's a
Mhm.
retcon that I can work with, which was, and again, you have to, if only if you're looking at Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, whether you know it or not, is setting you up for a very narrow view. And what Face the Music does is it just takes your view and allows it to do this, as opposed to
Mhm.
flat out calling it a retcon. But Bill and Ted 1, you guys, your band changes everything, and then in the future, they even say "Party on, Dude." Like when they send Rufus away, they're already quoting the great ones before, you know.
Mhm.
So we go to the future and we see this room and we see their album cover, we see them playing. Um, you know, and I love that Rufus. And I never okay. So watching Excellent Adventure again, when he asked him to sign the CD, I remember thinking,
Mm.
"That's Kelly's CD," and I got all stupid and emotional. Okay, so
Mm.
in Bogus Journey, when I see the future and how it's like different, what I've allowed myself to realize when watching Bogus Journey is not everything looks like that one scene. So those were adults in a facility. These are teenagers in a whole different city, in a whole different state. This is what this one place looks like. When I get
That was
to
yeah, yeah,
Face the Music, the fact that not everyone believes that
yeah.
means that when Rufus is speaking now, he believes that the goodness of the future is good no matter what, but I think the future is good because of you. Um, and that other people on the council acknowledge that while Bill and Ted definitely a part of some prophecy that we've never heard of before, but whatever, that there was a prophecy. We're just expanding the lore a bit, that others have interpreted in certain ways. Some people think that it means that they die. I like to now think that since not everyone thinks that way, when Bill and Ted arrive in the future in Excellent Adventure, that's more like a temple or a church. To me, it's not representing everything. It's actually
right.
not only is it its own location, but it also represents just a specific kind of people. Instead of just all future people, I now realize, no, in fact, kind of like how, like, you know, Brigham Young is, you know, as the university is named after this guy, like there's probably other universities that aren't named, you know, not everything is a Bill and Ted school. And like, oh, that's specifically a Bill and Ted school. We're only showing you this and that, but there is a bigger world, maybe of people who don't necessarily believe this, like Rufus is his wife, which it's funny that they, you know,
Another
what
thing,
interesting
yes.
kind of conflict within not necessarily the marriage, but you know, like Kellyanne Conway and her husband, and like how completely different they are. The idea that, like, not to invoke her name, but I'm just saying that, like, I'm trying to think of people who like really are two separate beasts, and to have this.
And the great leader had a lot of pressure on her shoulders. She was doing what she thought was best. I can understand that. I don't root for her, but I understand where she was coming from. I root for her when I see her support her daughter.
I like that she's the great leader, and that she's married to Rufus, who was a teacher, but he still was high up he can meet with the count. I love that her brooch is the same brooch that he has on his coat. It's a little thing like that, but I saw that, went.
And purely from a production design standpoint, one thing that I appreciated about the future is it did feel, at least to my eye, enough of like a kind of mesh of styles, from elements like of a metallic blue, just kind of like washing certain scenes, and even being like highlights in other scenes, but then just a lot of things just kind of like washed in white. And the blue, like from the first movie, the white from the second movie, and the fact that even Dennis, his armor, as it were, looks foamy to me, kind of like the foam in the opening future in Bogus Journey, and it doesn't. I think it looks like better quality, but I'm just kind of like, I see you, movie. Like, good. I'm responding to all this. It all feels connected, and that makes me really, really happy.
There's so much that's connected when you really think about it. You're talking about like just the foam of costumes versus the constant sense of duos, and also taking into account the idea that they're always trying to find the shortcut for the solution, and the shortcut is always what the finale of the movie is. Yes. Except the whole movie is, we need a shortcut. Not complaining, but I mean, you see enough movies that when they mention the first 20 minutes, they mentioned the prophecy that Preston Logan at this time will do the thing, and I went, it's their daughters. Got it. This is the thing that's been interpreted like we have. But here's the thing, again, with the retcon, not complaining that, like, but it felt fairly obvious to me that I'm like, oh, and at the end of the movie, we're going to find out that Preston Logan is U2. And then sure enough, they do that exact beat. Although Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves play it perfectly. I love that realization on their faces. But I like that even in their weird way, you could say this is a retcon that doesn't line up, and I would say it actually kind of does, because technically, if the prophecy is Logan Preston at this day and at this time do the song, and you have an album featuring Bill S. Preston and Ted Theodore Logan, to you, why? And even if the future is built on that music, that is the face of the band. This is what history maybe has recorded over time of this is the music and this is who the people are. But the little thing that they mistook was that no, it was actually them. And technically, at that point in the story, like they are, like Bill and Ted are supporting their band. That is the band.
Right.
So I could see how the misinterpretation lines up.
Me too.
Yeah.
Bill and Ted are like the figureheads, because also it starts literally the moment they begin strumming their guitars. Like everything is building up to that particular moment. And that's when everything unites time-wise. And and it just makes for, I mean, because, just to go back a little bit, just because one of the things I love in terms of one of the reasons it works for me, because also I didn't see it coming, because I don't see things ever coming. But so it was a total slap in the face in that great way.
Oh.
When I noticed them, I was realizing it as they were realizing it. So I just started crying.
I wish I had that.
But the thing is, the reason why was also because I love the way it's written leading up to it, because their fathers in the first movie, when they're first confronted with the future, not just Rufus, but like, you know, they're in the future, and they're just kind of like winging it, and they're just like, I guess we're supposed to say something. And they say what they now is legend, you know, the be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. There's an echo, yes, there you go, there's an echo of that with Billy and Thea, when they just start talking about like, well, we don't just do anything, we just like listen to things we like and make things we like and put it all together. And they're like, that's what you do. Just listen a little, make things you like and put it all together. And I'm just like, you're not just talking to your daughters, Bill and Ted, in the movie. Like, this is like the conceit of the movie. This is like the message that, I mean, aside from unity being the broadest message, but the most specific thing that I got from it, that I felt like the movie's just telling all of us, is there isn't some big, you know, kind of like, and now I've changed the world, and you know, and it's done and it's set in stone. No, you just have to do what Thea and Billy do. Just, you know, do what makes sense to you. Gravitate toward things that interest you, and play with them, and maybe challenge yourself and include other people. Follow the best of your instincts, the things that make you want to just like include as many people and uplift as many voices as you can.
Because they spend so much time like just trying to find the song, and eventually, did you get like a Brian Wilson vibe when they're at the wedding, and it's like them doing every instrument?
It was an incredible, not so much
except with Brian Wilson, we're just like, whereas in Bill and Ted, it was kind of amusing. But I mean, it was hints of it.
You know me, the interpersonal is the thing that I gravitate to the most. So the thing that broke my heart the most was the fact that I was just watching Bill and Ted in the beginning of the movie at that wedding try so hard to do the opposite of what I just said their daughters do, which is they weren't following any kind of inner instincts. I felt like they were trying to kind of like fill, like that's a huge undertaking to, like, you know, write the song that is going to unite the universe. So we got to think outside the box. We got to make that music. This is music, you know, like, no, that didn't work. Okay, what instruments haven't we played yet? Instead of just having fun like they did when they were young, when it seemed like that destiny was even closer. Now it's never felt farther away. And something about that, I mean, I'm not getting any younger either. And something about that spoke to me, something about just kind of like, you just hearing that message again at this particular stage of my life as I'm trudging through my 40s, is just about, don't worry if you haven't nailed this or anything like that. Like, what do you want? What do you like? Okay, how are you going to manifest that? And if that's too big, well, then what do you like right now? What do you want to do right now? Do it. I fucking love this movie.
I am of two minds. Well, I'm of one mind. But there's a part of me that could acknowledge the song at the end. There's a part of me that, I don't want to say it feels cheated, but like I always was curious about what the song, like a song that unites everyone, what would it sound like? And the fact that we thought it was "God Gave Rock and Roll to You" by Kiss, I'm like, okay, I thought that works, whatever. But the fact that like, no, we still have to get to it. The song that's featured in the movie isn't some mind-blowing thing. It's not bad. It's actually quite good. But you know, it's kind of, but when you hype that up, it's kind of like when you bad reference, I'm sorry, but in Rent, when Roger's supposed to write the song, and then the song he sings early in the show about writing the song is better than the song.
Yes, I agree.
This, I remember I just spent, you know, you tell me that you guys are going to perform and there's going to be the song. there's a 12-year-old in me who's just slightly cheated. He didn't get to hear something that like blew my mind. But more importantly, though, the other mind and the main mind set that I have is that I do like the idea that it's ultimately not really about the song as far as chord arrangements and about the melody and what the song's about, man. It's just the idea that it was a song that literally united everybody.
Yes.
I did not see that coming. I would almost argue it's a cop-out, but instead I think it's actually a really kind of beautiful idea.
I do too.
And I thought it really worked. And I actually got emotional when the phone booth just launches into the fucking stratosphere and just seeing them in there with their wives and splitting out and giving everyone instruments, even though it doesn't make any sense because like you give people instruments, but do they know how to play it? And you cut to all these people like in the crowd, like holding a violin, but no one ever like actually starts to play. But we're just all sort of together, all at the same time. Like the phone booth, if it could just go to infinite. Fuck it, whatever. The whole series has been fuck it, whatever. So the big finale of being like, yeah, we're just gonna go to infinite things and give everyone instruments, but it works. It really works. I love the idea also that the center of everything is San Dimas.
Yeah.
Just,
yes. Of course.
Because of Bill and Ted, the center of the universe is San Dimas. If I could have one, I don't know if I've already said there's one complaint, but I will admit this.
Okay, you did have one critique, but what do you want to say now?
I have a second critique, but I'm also okay with it, which is why I hesitate to call it a critique. But it's this. I remember being shocked that like they do the song and it shows a shot of the planet Earth, and like turns out we just needed to write a song that united the world, and it worked. Credits. I was like, oh God, we're done like that. That felt really abrupt. Like I needed one more scene with Bill and Ted, or Bill and Ted and their kids, or anything, or even just I don't know. I really feel like this story, especially after 3 movies, I felt like it needed an epilogue. But I also went, well, it was about playing the song, and then they played the song. What else is there to do, really? The story did just end. I think you're good, so calm down. However, even though that may be true, what my heart wants, not necessarily my brain, but what my heart will always want is just give me more Bill and Ted. And like excellent adventure. You had the report, but then we ended in the garage. And like how cool it would have been if like they performed the show and now like I don't know, maybe just some sort of a sense of emotional, like I got to see the band play the song and I have a sense of closure, but it would be nice to see Bill and Ted find some satisfaction with their daughters. I don't know. I just wanted more time, and technically we got more time in the end credits
with the
old versions
button.
Themselves.
Yeah,
the little button. But like I don't know, just from an emotional level. And again, it all comes back to I wanted more. And is that really a bad thing to want if you're doing something right?
Sure.
And if your audience wants more. But it was just so weird that the last shot of the movie, presumably the last Bill and Ted movie, wasn't of like a moment between them or any dialogue or exchanges or like, hey Bill, yes Ted, like I believe we did it just was like the planet and then it ended, and it was so abrupt. But again, they got on the stage, they did the song, and then Bill and Ted, they start to shred together and all the lights fucking go, and that is satisfying. I could have used one more scene. I want more of them.
It worked for me because something, again, simplicity, something speaking to, and I'm probably going to get really emotional talking about this. I'll try not to. Or, whatever. It is what it is. Deal with it. But no, something so hopeful, talking about the time that we're watching this in, and to watch not only everybody in the world at present, but everybody in the universe in all times harmonizing together and playing a song. Whether they can play or not is immaterial. It's not about what the song sounds like. It
Right.
is, they even spell it out for you. It is the exact act of just everybody playing together. And the fact that I think what did I write it down? Oh, because I mean, also, I mean, I was already, of course, I'm already crying because also that's when the great leader looks at Kelly and she just says, "Your father would be so
Yeah.
proud of you," and he would. And Holland Taylor is a splendid actress who can do a lot with a little. And Kristen Schaal is a splendid actress who receives it and hears it without milking anything. It's so not sentimentalized. It's just everything that moment needs to be. And but then the fact that like we're, you know, they just kind of start closing it up with the narration, and the last thing you hear is, "And it worked."
Yeah.
And it's so hopeful.
Delivered. Yeah.
It gave me it was almost just kind of like giving me just like a spark of hope for us, for where our world is, when I feel like we are so far gone, when we have a news cycle that just kind of feels like one horrible detail after another about atrocities and things that we should be embarrassed about, and to witness a story where, against all odds, in a really simple way, it worked. It was just what I needed.
I'm not going to disagree with you about how it made me feel.
Yeah.
I agree with you that that's especially her delivery. And I definitely got more out of, like, I let her delivery, and it worked. I let it hit me a lot more the second and third time. Didn't feel as abrupt. I don't discredit that. That's a beautiful ending. I wouldn't mind like a little bit. I just want a little more of those two guys, man. I just want a little denouement, just a little bit more. Just give me fucking. I just want one extra bite of the fucking moose. You know, just something. I just wanted more of them.
Well, the more for me was also the end credits, like prior to them like playing and everything, but just like watching. First of all, just like watching everybody like play like in their own thing, and then they unleashed the cosplayers.
Oh yeah, we almost did that, and we kind of waited. They posted a thing, and they were they put out a music track, so you kind of knew the rhythm of it, and
sure.
And even if you're not in cosplay, they just said even if you don't have an instrument, just air guitar. And I remember thinking, yeah, I'll do that. Like, yeah, whatever. And then I'm like, oh, it's tomorrow. And then I see, like, you know, there's people in front of temples in other countries, and mine would just been like in my driveway.
But there are people who did that too. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but it's a nice way to include everyone playing along with the song. It's such a great little way, and also it was a nice thing for people in the pandemic to kind of get out of their house for a moment and
yeah. And again, do something that unified them, and that because I knew that there's no way they hired this many extras to do it. This is something so obviously like, okay, crowds, like, you know, people, fans of Bill and Ted, like, you know, give us, you know, what you got, and that's why that was overwhelming too, because I was just like, oh my god, like, because I just hear "and it worked" within this fictitious world, but it's so incredibly moving. And then I'm seeing people in the real world, all over the world, just kind of sharing in their celebration of this idea of these movies that are just about human values at their core, and I fucking love it.
Everyone in the world playing along with this song, and that being like your last shot, I get it's very emotionally satisfying. I just can't help but wanting to bring it back down to these two guys again, and because the ending is big. I mean, and there's a lot going on when they're trying to get the thing going, and we're running out of time, and then they get the princesses. They go to the phone booth, and like they have their little connection, you know, the "I love you" moment. But it's in the middle of like chaos, like everything's loud and happening, and what I wanted was just a little at the end. within the actual structure, because I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it a bad thing for me to just want a little more?
No, it's not. I'm not saying it's
You know what I mean?
bad. I'm just.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm grateful
But I'm
for
not saying I
was
wasn't satisfied completely, because the
sure.
story is satisfying. But especially
just
because Bill and Ted has the garage, Excellent Adventure has the garage scene. Bogus Journey is them playing just into a high five, so it could be the same complaint. But at least prior to them starting the song, they have a speech. So I get this sort of denouement, this thing that's wrapped up. You know, the best place to be is here, and you know, he looks at the prince. The best time to be is now. It's a nice moment, you know. And I needed like a quieter little moment at the end, just because I'm trained to. But one nice thing I really liked about the end credit stinger, though, actually not the end credit stinger, but just the old Bill and Ted in general.
Yeah.
I love that old Ted has 3 happy faces on his shirt. Because Excellent Adventure, he's got a happy face on his shorts, and in Bogus Journey, he's got a happy face on the back of his vest. And I like that in each movie, I get happy faces somewhere on Ted. And in the end credits scene, his guitar strap, happy faces. Little continuity things.
Of course.
Little things.
No, but
also
details.
You know where all the fucking money was spent on this movie? The makeup.
Oh God.
The old men look excellent.
Yes.
And I think it would be a gas if next year Bill and Ted Face the Music, Academy Award nominee for makeup, because like it's so good.
That. I would like that a lot.
So good.
I still would rather, if you know me, I'm not a big cosplayer, but if I were going to do any Bill and Ted cosplay, I'd still really, and this is like, I'd have to do it right, but the one that I would be really willing to attempt, because I want to nail it, is dead Bill and Ted from Bogus Journey.
And do the makeup?
Yes!
That's the dream.
And the hair, and then, it's beautiful. I love, it's one of my favorite things to look at in that movie, and I love looking at most of that movie, but just like looking at their gray and it's so beautiful. Like makeup is amazing, and and it's old school. Again, it's practical.
Oh yeah,
it's totally achievable, and yet it works for the movie. It's so effective, and I'm like, why aren't there more movies that do this? There can't be, because it's Bogus Journey. But that's the makeup that I would want to attempt. I did have one more question for you though, because it came up for me while I was watching Excellent Adventure, and also just with the time travel in Face the Music too. Do you have any figures in history that if you could like travel back and like, you know, maybe not dinner party, but just get together and hang out, like, you know, like a little group in a phone booth? Do you know who you'd want to go visit? Because
there's like eight people jammed into that one phone booth, and somehow they all fit.
Yeah. Not an omnibus, like as many or as little as you want, but is there anybody you would want to
writing down a thing to say later?
Good.
Jesus.
Okay, I'll tell you mine. What you think, if you want.
Yeah, because I definitely yes. Go ahead.
Because I could only think of 3, because I was thinking like, okay, like they've got, you know, all the people. I didn't want to repeat any from Excellent Adventure, because that feels like a cop out.
All of history, or are we doing like music? People like Face the Music.
All of history. Oh, okay. all of whatever. Like all of. I mean, yeah, it can be music. It can be whatever you want. Like for me, it was mostly people with kind of an artistic bent, because like there's too many figures in history where I'm just like, well, you're too unpredictable. Like I even thought about Mozart, and I was like, wasn't he kind of a hedonist and a prick? I mean, like hedonism, okay, but prick?
I love that the movie doesn't even play into that. They don't have him do like Tom Hulce impression or anything.
Yeah.
I really
He's just a dude who likes music.
Yeah, really like that. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I do too. But as far as me going back and getting Amadeus Mozart, the guy, you know, like I'm like, I don't know. I mean, like he liked to hit the bottle pretty hard. He was really self-destructive, and I'm not in my 20s anymore. But I thought like, okay, so who would I want, like, just to kind of take the edge off, somebody to have some fun with? And the first person I thought of was Oscar Wilde, because also he'd be fun. Oscar Wilde would be fucking fun.
He'd be great at a dinner party. He'd be witty as shit. You'd be giggling the whole goddamn night.
But this is the thing that I realized also I would love to do about bringing him forward, because I started thinking about like people, like I'm like, well, what about like Harriet Tubman? And I'm like, I don't want to bring her to this present because I don't know, I don't want to depress her.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be grateful for, but there's also a lot of, I'd probably feel bad. But so I'm like, so who would be happy? And I'm like, okay, if I brought Oscar Wilde to this future, I feel like he would kind of only focus on the positive, and also I just want to show him that his words are still witty,
Mm-hmm.
that they haven't lost anything with time. I think he'd really appreciate that, and I think he'd just be a caught up. So much fun. Then I thought, okay, Frida Kahlo, because I feel like if I could just like get her a drink and just get some really, really good stories from her, and also she just introduced her to Oscar Wilde, and we could just sit there and we could all just kind of like, shoot the shit and just decompress. I was just like, okay, so I just want to take the edge off of Frida Kahlo and just be like, look at this. I mean, and show her, like, people still can identify you just from your image, like today. Like, I mean, it's amazing. And look, Selma Hayek played you. And the only other person who I could think of where I was like, in terms of really take the edge off, like I would really just want to like let her know, you know what, you're mentioned as often in the same breath as your husband, and that's Zelda Fitzgerald.
Mm.
Just because I want her to know, you know what, we see you in the future. People are still talking about you, and you finally get like acknowledged. Anybody who discusses your husband discusses you, and you're a lot more interesting to a lot of people. So just know that. And I won't show her Baz Luhrmann's Great Gatsby. So yeah, that's my little team that I'd want to like amass and have just like a great night of like drinking and cutting up. Did you think of anybody?
Um, Not nearly enough. I only have one solid one, and then another one's not far enough back, but I still have my reasons. And
Okay.
yeah, I don't. Try. Yeah, here's the one that I definitely for sure. It's my my brain's forgetting importance of being earnest.
Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde.
Yes.
Mark Twain.
Nice.
One of my favorite writers. Funny as fuck.
Mm.
I think he would find a lot of things amusing about now, and he'd also be amused at how little has changed. But like,
Right.
and again, I'd like to show him like, dude, like, Diary of Adam and Eve. Like, it's been a while, and guess what? Men and women still behave the exact same way, and all these jokes still land in 2020. Honestly, the first thing that popped into my head, and I know he died in the 90s, but I wrote down Kurt Cobain because I really think.
That
Uh,
works.
First of all, I'd just like to sit that guy down and maybe have a nice meal and try to put a smile on his face. You know?
Understood completely.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting for him to see what rock has become.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's the only two that I thought of. I'm like, come on, think of some women. Think of someone important. And again, I thought of Harry Tubman too. I'm like, no, that's too depressing.
Well, I would depress her. That's the thing.
No,
I
that's what
about.
I'm
What
saying.
about like any
Like,
any?
I would like
Yeah.
when people like when Louis Armstrong is like looking at a phone and stuff. Like I know
Yeah.
she'd find her way to YouTube,
Yeah.
and I don't think she'd be happy about seeing what's happening at ICE. And first of all,
Yeah.
I would keep this away from everyone
Yeah.
because I don't want them to see the clip of like Trump going like, "Oh, I didn't know what I said," and they're like, "Wait,
No.
that guy's in charge? The
Yeah.
guy, he did what now?" You're like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'd probably give them 3 questions they could ask me about the presents, and they have to be yes or no.
I got one for you.
Who?
Mary Shelley.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Good
For
one.
so many reasons.
So many.
Yeah.
But also, yes, still spoken about, still stories still celebrated, and still trying to be remounted into a dark universe.
Yeah.
We won't show her Van Helsing.
No, I would pick her brain real hard, and
yeah.
And also her and Percy. I mean, that shit's so juicy.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like I feel like That would be. I'd get a little gossipy there, I think. I don't. Yeah, because we're trying to get people from a billion. Because this is different than if I had a time machine, where would I go thing.
Right.
Because that's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm trying to. Yeah. Because I'll tell you this right up front without getting into that whole rabbit hole. If I had a time machine, I would go back and watch how and why Stonehenge was assembled. But that's not a person. But I'm dying to know because we don't know, and we still are like, but what's it for? And how did they get what? And it turns out it's like, no, it's a sex thing, you know. Wait, but how did you brought the stones all these miles and miles for a sex thing? And they're like, yeah, it's really good stone for all the sex stuff. Okay, you know. I don't know.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, time-wise,
you know who else would be fun?
Who?
I would like to bring the Wright brothers and then take them to an airport and be like, look.
I was just thinking about them today.
Look at this. Look at what has happened.
After everything that they go through with all of those trial and errors with their flying machines that they attempted, like, I mean, I thought about Leonardo da Vinci because I knew he designed one too. But the thing is, like, to the point where he gets like mad and he starts cutting off his ear and stuff. It's like, well, do I want? Like, that's the thing, is that I'm constantly worried about like either what being in this time is going to do to my guest, or what are they really going to be like? You know, like at what stage am I going to grab this person?
I got another person for you too, actually, and I would keep them separate.
Yes.
I'd do it each on their own.
Okay.
I want to bring Edison, and I'd want to bring Tesla.
Ooh.
And slowly be like, all right, now we're going to go outside, and you're going to see street lights. And now I'm going to show you this car. And now I'm going to show you what Wi-Fi is. And they're just going to be like, whoa, what? Yeah. Edison and Tesla. That'd be a good time.
I mean, it'd certainly be interesting. I don't know if it'd be a good time.
I think they'd get a lot out of what's become of electricity.
I worry about, I don't know. I'd worry about what would come out. I'm too worried about like people's, you know, it's like what if like Tesla looks up and he's just kind of like,
meh.
Wait, who do people think did this?
No, but like, no, like, but Tesla, there's like a lot of people who are into you though too, and they're
exactly.
Look
at these cars, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, and then like just keep Edison away from the Tesla dealership.
Yeah, I mean,
see, I think I worry too much about that shit. That's why I'm just like, Oscar Wilde would be just like, oh, fabulous, and I feel like Frida would be down, and Zelda I feel like Zelda might be the easiest. I feel like closest to Joan of Arc in terms of just kind of like a phone booth or whatever this is landed, you know, in my bedroom, and this man is coming out and asking me to go with Frida Kahlo and Oscar Wilde. I'll just go with it. You know, I won't ask too many questions.
You had me. I'm already just happy with Oscar Wilde. That's a great answer. That's a great answer.
That was the first one I thought of, and I was just like, so much fun.
I'd like to go Shakespeare, just to be like, did you really write these? Is this really you? Cool.
Yeah.
Also, I think this is one just to be like, I'd be curious if they were really real. I'd want to go Mulan. And be like, is it folklore? Or like, oh no, you're really you. Cool. So I recently watched a video that chronicled like the first sighting and writing of Mulan, and then like 200 years later, the second where like her story was told, but it was 200 years later, and then all the different variations of the legend, as you know. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be fun to know. Like, I feel like the obvious one's Jesus, but like, no, like in Mulan, is she real?
Mulan would be interesting also just because like in terms of again, like showing her like her legacy. I don't know if I'd show her either movie, but I just want her to know like you're being discussed, you're being talked about, and the thing that is inspiring people the most about you and your story is ultimately they feel like because you can achieve it, because you did all this, so can I. You know, like Mulan is me, just a person who not, you know, like a big remarkable person, but a person who attempted a remarkable thing. And that would be awesome. That'd be cool. I mean, I would want to show people their legacies. The problem is, like, you know, as we've unearthed more and more about people who we've held up for so long, at least in my lifetime, we start to, you know, realize the things that they didn't teach us in school. And it's like, well, why not? Why didn't you tell us? Like, there are people who I'd like to bring to the present for other reasons, like Columbus.
Oh, yeah. Just kick
like,
him in the nuts.
See, you fuck, I'm going to drop you off at this reservation and just go for it. This is Columbus, y'all. Kick him in the nuts.
I would like to do the Deadpool 2 thing with baby Hitler, you know? But not as a baby. Like adult Hitler.
Like, yeah, like just finished typing up Mein Kampf Hitler.
Yeah. And then he like pulls the last paper out and he's like, and then like sucker punch.
So, I love these movies.
Speaking of historical stuff, I remember when they first announced that Kid Cudi was going to be in the cast.
Yeah.
And that the log line said, "Oh, Bill and Ted and trying to historical figures for a band." Like that was the premise that was described.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, Kid Cudi should play Hendrix, because if you're gonna get together a band of historical figures, like how do you not have Hendrix in your band? And then I saw the movie and I'm like, well, I was right about the Hendrix part. Like, I like that they had the foresight to be like, we're gonna put together a band. Like, how the fuck do we not get Hendrix? Although, you know, would have been a neat little thing, like a fan satisfying gag, if they got Van Halen to play himself.
Ooh.
And he gets to be in their band. What a great callback to the first movie. And they didn't even need a triumphant video to get Eddie Van Halen in their band. Even just
that would have been
kind
of cool, but it's their daughters.
I know it's ultimately their thing, and Kid Cudi is definitely of their generation. And here's the thing: is they didn't even seek him out. He's part of the time fluctuations.
I know. I love it. My favorite thing about Kid Cudi in the whole movie is the fact that he's so well versed when discussing the quantum realm.
Yeah, he's a scientific little
time
genius.
Travel. Yeah, I love that. That makes me really happy.
That's a really good little. Yeah, I love that.
Like he talks so over their heads, like Kid Cudi. Speak English, man.
And I love that he's playing himself. Like,
yes.
Another little thing I like about the movie is that it's a throwaway moment, but it's not even a moment. But when the phone booth lands at Dave Grohl's house, I remember looking at the antenna and a little section of it jiggles once it lands. And I'm like, it really is the old phone booth, the original phone booth, because that shit got fucking glued together with fucking
bubble gum
and pudding cans. And even though the antenna's in better shape, it's to me, it's like, yeah, but still not like, it's still a little fucked. And the fact that it's like, I'm like, nice.
It's still a historical relic. They're going to do their best to preserve it. Yeah.
Between the slot van and also in the first movie, you know, the electricity that comes out, you always see sometimes these electrical things form these hands that wrap and pull the phone booth down. And in this movie, they have the hands grip and pull it again. So like people knew their shit when it was time to make the thing happen.
The attention to detail.
I'm just happy and appreciate, I kind of said this earlier, but I just appreciate the fact that when I saw like the phone booth was back, I'm like, oh, so it's going to be the first movie again. And they're like, well, no, they used the phone booth, but it isn't. It's about them meeting their future selves. So it's still a different gimmick. It's still a different thing that the movie's about. So I needn't to worry that they're using the phone booth. Because it's not exactly for the same purpose.
Mm-hmm. I like the infinity button.
Yeah, it's weird because it's in the other movie, and they light up and they push them twice. And this one, like, oh no, you just use the. I remember even when he's going on and on, I'm like, isn't there an infinity button on there? and then Joanna or Elizabeth, someone says it. Oh, I feel like we're winding down, but I can't not talk about the new Joanna and Elizabeth's.
Yeah.
I feel like, no offense to the ones from Bogus Journey, but I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Prior to watching that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with this, I like Erin Hayes a lot. I'm a big fan, actually. And I'm looking her up.
Jayma Mays
from
Glee.
I mean, I know a lot of
Ugly
people know
Betty.
a lot of people know her from Glee and Ugly
Yeah.
Betty, and I definitely know her from Glee, and I like what she brings to whatever, because she's got a thing, and she's great at it, like her energy and her cadence and shit.
Yeah.
But I first saw her in Red Eye, and I were going, this girl's good. She's playing like essentially Hitchcock's daughter in that movie.
Yes.
And the second I saw her in Glee, I'm like, oh, you're the funny girl from Red Eye. I'll always love her because she's so good in Red Eye.
Yeah. She's got so many credits. It's insane.
Yeah. But Erin Hayes, if you haven't seen fucking Children's Hospital, she's one of the...
I saw that she was in that, and I was like, I still haven't seen it. I need to check it out.
It is so flippin' funny. I adore Children's Hospital.
And she was we mentioned the actor Chris Diamantopoulos when we were discussing Hannibal, played Robin Williams in that Mork and Mindy TV movie. I don't know if you remember.
Okay. I didn't remember that.
Erin Hayes played Pam Dauber. She was Mindy in the Mork and Mindy TV movie. Yeah. Isn't that weird?
If you're just going, like, I hate when, because I don't think people need to look like who they're playing.
Sure.
But like my first thought is, really? Like, okay, but I need to see it. But now, because of her, I want to see it.
Yeah.
But she's funny. She's so funny. And when they both showed up, and it's weird that, like, we bring back Ted's dad for each movie, and we bring back Missy, but we always recast the princesses, because I would love to have seen Diane Franklin come back. And, like, why can't she come back? Like, I don't know. I've never read why they recast them, like the fucking Griswold children.
I don't understand. Right? No, I don't understand why.
Because other people don't get recast, and I really hope it's not some shitty Hollywood thing of like, well, their wives need to be younger actresses, you know. Yeah, at least they cast people who are genuinely funny and talented in their own right. But I don't understand why other people can keep coming back, but they don't.
I felt like,
but it has made it sort of a Griswold Kids gag, though, for me also.
Sure.
I mean, Deacon didn't come back, so whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, I felt like with maybe it was a question of, in terms of the third movie, it's like, well, then which ones do you bring back? Do you bring back the ones from the first movie or the ones from the second movie? What if we just, they already changed.
Right.
What if they just change it? We'll just get them different people, because, and I think if it had been in the hands of less capable actresses, or even if they had been written to be sidelined more so, even though they are, we've established a subplot, and they are, I still connect with them. I still worry a lot about their relationships when they sit there, and after Bill and Ted leave, the first thing that they tell Jillian Bell as Dr. Wood, she deserves a shout out. I thought she was great managing all the madness that they were unleashing on her.
When Washington's in her hallway and she's just like, no.
Yeah, no. But just the fact that she's like putting all this shit together, I love that we're more accustomed to it than anybody else at that moment, along with our protagonists that we follow. But the fact that the first thing they say after the guys leave is like, we love our husbands, but this thing that they're trying to attempt is impossible. And it made my heart sink, because I just watched their daughters have such faith in their fathers. And I'm watching the wives, and I'm just like, oh, so maybe there is an alternate timeline, or several, where they just, for their own good, needs to feel the need to kind of like let go and go off in another direction for a multitude of reasons. And I thought, but I also like the fact that, like, as soon as they come back and they find out that the future thems are going to come and like show them like all the other realities, and we're terrible. I drink, but Ted, you don't drink. I'm just like, oh no, what are we going to do? I mean, I was just like, oh, look how worried they are. Look how sweet they are. Look how
they're instantly very concerned. Yeah.
Yeah.
And caring
I
concern, not about themselves. It's selflessly.
No, they're just
Yeah.
like, oh, what about us? What about, like, what about us? What about the world? Like, I mean, oh my gosh, now it's all so huge. Like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? And they never really get past that. They just kind of go off with the older thems and, drop in just
Yeah.
to kind of like clutch their husbands. And I feel like the support is on an incline throughout the movie. Like the more the movie goes on, the less I kind of worry about them losing them. The more I'm just kind of like sitting there going like, oh, Bill and Ted are so worried. Before we wrap this up, I really want to Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
For a long time, even though I had my subliminal crush on him, for a long time, he wasn't. I mean, I just kind of went with the crowd. Throughout the '90s, there were a lot of times he was a joke. His acting was a joke. People making statements like he's the worst thing about Devil's Advocate, and I mean, I saw Much Ado About Nothing, and but I remember Ted was always like, kind of like to Keanu Reeves what Gilbert Grape was to Leonardo DiCaprio for me, because I wasn't a big Leo fan through the '90s either, but there was always Gilbert Grape, where it was unquestionably brilliant performance. Ted Theodore Logan, Keanu Reeves playing him, unquestionably brilliant performance. And so it's wonderful to come out the other side of his career, and after Duke Kaboom and John Wick and everything, and just him, really just seeing him in interviews and how lovely he is and how humble he is, really kind of experience a renaissance of people going to see Keanu Reeves movies, and in a sense, like maybe reach an apex of his career.
Right.
And who knows? It's
So
still
much
going.
so that we're getting a Matrix 4 and
Right.
John Wick 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And like a Bill and Ted 3. Like,
yeah. And I'm just like, I'll take it. I'll
Yeah.
take whatever you got. More Keanu, great. But and the fact that it's lovely to love him as much as I do and be conscious of how much I love him now, and then to get him reprising this role, and to get little moments like watching him completely recreate that body language in the phone booth that I talked about, and his little and to Rufus, and I don't know, I just
and all those gestures, they feel like he's older and stiffer, but they're the way that Ted would have aged physically.
Yes, and I've never been prouder of him. Keanu Reeves forever. That's all I gotta say.
I don't have much to add. I had the exact same trajectory. There was that period where you look at Dracula or Much Ado About Nothing,
right?
But there was always that thing where I'm like, but he was so good in Bill and Ted, and seeing the interviews, I've read the articles, I know about the tragedies in his life and what he's overcome, and then all the nice things he's done. And I also think he's actually in the right parts. He's been excellent in so many other roles, and yeah, I fucking love him.
Me too.
I don't have anything fresh or original that's gonna blow your mind other than he's great. But I mean, I've never, as much as I love like John Wick movies, I've never relished him more than I did in the Bill and Ted's and Parenthood. That energy, that and
it's essentially Ted,
yeah, because even though Parenthood's essentially Ted, but it's not quite. But when he helps, I forget the kid who's playing Diane. Is it Weist or Weist?
Diane Weist.
Her son.
Yeah.
And he's like,
and he talks to him
smiled. He smiled? Yeah.
Yeah. I told him, that's just what little dudes do.
Yeah.
It's so sweet.
It is.
Oh my God. So We love you guys. We love you guys if you're watching. Or people who know you are watching. Tell them we love them.
And the world, it feels like the internet has fallen in love with Keanu several years ago all over again.
Yeah.
But Alex Winter went away for a while.
Yeah.
And again, if you take anything from this video, watch Freaked. So good.
Yes, sir.
But to have him go away, I hate when people say, well, he did Bill and Ted, and then he went to directing, and he hasn't acted in so long. And I forget the name of the movie. I already forgot the name of the movie. But it was Elijah Wood as a pianist, and I think it was John Cusack as there's like a sniper, and like when so it was very Hitchcock, like he's on stage and he can't get away, and you have to play the music.
Wow.
But there is an associate who is around, and it's Alex Winter, and it came out maybe like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. But I remember like 2012 going, Alex Winter, where the fuck have you been? And in this random thriller, you're like the third bill, like where, what? So yeah. Anyway, it's just a little nitpick, but people keep referring to him having been gone from screens for like 20 years, and I say bullshit.
Yeah.
There was a very Hitchcockian thriller, and it was pretty solid, but it was so nice to see him on camera again. And it's so nice. They both gotten older, but he still got that thing.
Yeah.
Like the camera still loves his face, his eyes still read.
Yeah.
He gives this. It's almost the same beat as Why Do We Lie to Ourselves, which is like, is it really stealing?
Yeah.
We're stealing from ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in such a tight window of time, and what I presume is a very rushed schedule. I mean, I thought he really showed up to deliver. They both did.
One of my favorite moments where it's just watching them again get emotional, which is something we don't get to watch Bill and Ted do a lot, but it's when they're discussing their daughters with Dennis, and he just says, I lasered your daughters. And I just wrote down the lines. They're not terribly funny lines, but just the delivery, I was just like, I'm getting everything I need from this moment. Just, you lasered them? You lasered our daughters? Where are they? Daughters are in hell. You sent our daughters to hell. I'm so there with them. I'm so incredibly on exactly the level, like that thing you're talking about with Alex and his ability to, I guess, meet me halfway or to kind of absorb me into his experience and as a protagonist. Like that's star power. That's something that you can't teach, and it's. I'm really glad I got to experience that with him again and with the two of them. The fact that I didn't feel like anything got lost from their chemistry. Everything felt completely believable as far as like just two friends who.
I love they live next door to each other.
Yeah.
He pulls up with the car, but then they walk to the next house. That's made me happy.
I also
love in the opening when the daughters are explaining what happened with the band, and they mention they thought their first song would have done it, and you see these like artwork, and the artwork is of the silhouettes of Bill, Ted, Elizabeth, Joanna, Station, and Death, and I'm like, thank you for at least acknowledging. Well, it's a giant thing. It's not two on Congo and Bongos, but still, I'm like, there's this big. That's a nice touch. There's always little nice touches in these.
Oh, and Kid Cudi with his Station.
Oh God, I saw it at a drive-in, but you have your windows rolled down for airflow.
Yeah.
And you could hear everyone laughing. Everyone cheered. It's great.
Oh, it makes me want to weep. I fucking love it. I fucking.
I will say, and this will be my final thought again, because it's funny. I spent so much time in this video deconstructing the time travel because I'm letting myself have this be the one time where I do, because I am a firm believer in how none of it matters. I've said it a million times in these videos. It's all part of the charm. But I do think, in a weird way, I'll say this. It's an allegory. It's a metaphor. But in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and I'm quoting exactly, when he's like, we won't be a great band until we get Eddie Van Halen guitar. It's like, well, I don't believe we'll get Eddie Van Halen until we have trumpet video. Well, it's pointless to have a trumpet video before we have decent instruments. Well, how can we have decent instruments if we don't really know how to play? Well, that's why we need Eddie Van Halen. Well, that's why we need a trumpet music video. Like, that's how the time travel rules work in these movies. And none of it, it's all just, fuck it. But they're like, yeah, excellent. And that's how the movies are. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I concur, even though it makes more sense to me.
Sure.
Still.
But for a time travel movie, the time travel rules are a bit silly, but it's not a time travel movie. It's about them. And then all three movies become about them. And it becomes about them and their charm. And it's, whatever you do.
How excellent it would be if the world could just unite.
Right?
Yeah.
If everyone could, even to this day, I do many times when something shitty's happening, you're just like, be excellent to each other. Like,
yes,
these are lessons that people need to learn.
Party on, dudes.
I don't even care that much about party on, dudes. Just be excellent to each other.
Be excellent to each other definitely takes the cake these days.
Yeah.
But I think the party on, dudes is I love the fact that it comes after be excellent to each other, because once you have already begun being excellent to each other,
now
then you
you're
can just
free.
party on, dudes. Yeah.
It's like coming home and doing all your homework Friday night so that your weekend's free to just party.
Yeah.
Quoted from another duo. Remember, I mean, that was the thing. Like Wayne and Garth, Bill and Ted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Spicoli. Like, to a certain degree, they all kind of sounded like this. I always hated, you used to see this in reviews all the time, or just write-ups. They always refer to Bill and Ted as party dudes. And I always hated that. They may have had a party dude accent, but Wayne and Garth would end their show and they would go out and like, party! Yeah. Bill and Ted, you never see them party. They say party on, but like, they don't party.
They
have a little shindig at their apartment in the second movie, but like Spicoli, you know, on the last night at school, the little prom party, like, hey bud, let's party. Like, those guys party. I always hated it always showed how out of step certain film journalists were when they refer to Bill and Ted as party dudes, because your vernacular is very limited. Your experience.
We've only seen them at 2 parties. At the opening of Bogus Journey, where they are full on reeling from the realities of their lives, with Missy now dating Captain, or married to Captain Logan, and Bill drinking, full on chugging a beer because he witnesses his father's complete withering decay in emotionally. From being, why did he even go to the party? And the only other party, I guess, and the only other, I think it was just to see Missy. But the only other party that we see them at is the wedding at the top of Face the Music, and they're struggling. You know, they're doing their best, but I mean, I agree with you as far as like, because I mean, the second you said it, I was just kind of like, party dudes. I don't like that.
No, I've made that face so many times my whole life because I see it written and I hate it.
I don't like it. The lion's share of their conversations, this is why I hold them to a level of Vladimir and Estragon from Waiting for Godot, and of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and Hamlet. Is because that's the level of conversation they're having. It's not like these other men are in these plays are having profound conversations, but they are questioning things. They're questioning even the profundity of life, and that in and of itself can be profound. And I think there's a lot of profundity. There was another line, actually, sorry, I'm just going to go on forever. There was another line that I loved. It was after they had the buckets on their heads in Face the Music. I fucking love it because they were just like, oh my God, buckets on our head. That was, that was totally like the right thing. And Ted just says, maybe we should always not know what we're doing.
Yeah. It's
how fucking zen is that? Yeah. Like, my God.
The only true knowledge is knowing that you know nothing.
Right.
It's us, dude.
Yeah.
Full circle.
But it's just the fact that they brought it back to like this philosophizing, this kind of San Dimas garage band philosophizing that I'm still not tired of it after all of these years, and not in any of the installments have I ever gotten tired of it. I'll take it as long as I can get it.
And beyond the philosophizing, just the basics of good jokes, they're all still there. You going just as far back as the first movie of when we went to the Hall of Presidents, what did he say? Welcome to the Hall of Presidents. These are all just stupid jokes, and they're all through. And you get to this one, and he's got the gun on him. He's like, you don't need to do that. He's like, well, let's see what happens when I don't use the gun. And then they immediately turn around and run away. Click.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah.
It's all, yeah. It's great.
So good. So good. Oh.
But you know what my new little happy place is?
What?
Is Billy and Thea just listening to fucking Louis Armstrong, and then fucking Mozart, and like the movie's so full of laughs, but I just if I revisit that, I need those two little moments because they give me warmth.
One of my happy moments is just Thea. I just want to get the quote exactly right because I wrote it down. It's after Jimi Hendrix rejects them, and Thea doesn't move a muscle except for her mouth just to utter out, "Dude, we have to get Jimi Hendrix."
I so glad you quoted that because that's one of my favorite moments. It's her delivery. It's
I didn't even do it justice. It's dry as a fucking bone.
But it's so factual, and it's so driven by 100% need. Like a lot, it's oh god. I remember each times I've watched that, I've chuckled at her delivery of it. It's not even a joke. It's not. It's guaranteed. It's not scripted as a joke. Yeah. But her delivery makes me laugh because of the truth of what she's saying.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
What
All right, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Thanks, guys.
That's been a fun night. One night for us, 3 different things for everyone else. But we'll be back for something else. I think we're probably gonna go back to something spooky next time. Yeah. So until next time, I've been John Carlos, and that is Eddie.
Eddie.
And bye. Be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes. She looked like such a little kid in this.
Whoa.
Like I was just like
earthquake.
Oh my God. Are you okay?
Yeah, you don't have this?
No. Des, you okay? Oh.
You getting it?
A little bit.
Oh, this is I shook. But yeah, I'll be back in a minute. I'm just gonna
Okay. Are you watching me right now? If you're watching me, blink your eyes. Did you blink? Then you're a fool.